is important to you. I thank you that you love our city. I thank you that you love the people who live here. And Father, as we live in a world that is changing continually, I read in the Word today, according to Malachi chapter 1, verse 6, that you are the Lord and you do not change. In the midst of a very troubling world sometimes, there is a core that never changes, and it's God, and He's in the center of it. And so we ask that you'd bring calmness and a sense of your peace and your direction into this meeting. We ask that you put your hedge of protection above our city and among those who serve us and look after us, our police force and our firemen and all that teach and take care of our children. Our whole community desperately needs your attention and your presence, and we give you thanks for what you're going to do for us tonight and throughout this day and throughout this week. In your precious name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Lester. So let's start with roll call.
Rodriguez?
Here.
Bruner?
Here.
Ogeboom?
Here.
Levi?
Present.
Haverfield?
Here.
Skog?
Thank you, Debbie. So as we get started this evening, just a reminder to those of us sitting here and to those that are in the audience, if anyone is speaking tonight, because this is live streamed via the internet, it's important that we pull our mics up close so that those on the other side can actually hear. And so if the mic is too high or too low, please adjust it as you come forward and speak right into that mic so that the public can hear as we're talking. So I don't know of any proposed amendments to the agenda. Are there any from anyone? Technically, according to the new state law, there aren't amendments to the agenda unless they're of an emergency nature, and needless to say, we would know that. So moving it on to our consent agenda. I would stand for a motion to approve our consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? And roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Ogeboom?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Thank you. We have no proclamations this evening, and the next item on the agenda is, this is the opportunity that anyone wishing to speak on an agenda item or non-agenda item has the opportunity to speak. I'd like to start with non-agenda items tonight, and I see Mr. Curtis Homer standing at the back. Curtis, would you like to come forward and let everybody know who you are, why you're here, where you live, right? I don't know if you have to do that. Maybe you don't want to say where you live, but
We can.
thank you.
Curtis Homer, and I'm representing the Snake River Stampede Board, and I live at 14316 Inspiration Place. And so I appreciate a few minutes tonight, and I understand we're limited to 25 minutes. Is that right?
I'm going to say Debbie's in charge, the clerk. She has the timer.
Okay. One thing I want to do is to thank everyone here, the council and the mayor, for your attendance this year at the rodeo. Hope you enjoyed it, and we had a good time. It's a lot of work, and so we appreciate your support in getting that rodeo, again, to try to be in the top 5. I put a letter up here for you to read. You'll note it's July the 10th. That was when we were getting ready for the rodeo, so we didn't want to just drop it off and run away. The basic letter is that we have been working with the Idaho Horse Park Foundation, a group, and we are wanting to start a planning process for that land that we did not sell in the back. It's been 8 months. There's been no trade or anything going on, and we certainly don't want to lose that. So what we would want to do is we're looking at joining with them on a LLC to try to develop and plan that. When we came before you in January, then that was one of the directives, was that we apply our energies towards, trying to help develop that property. And at times it's come up that one good spot for it might be to develop that back 5 acres into an RV park, which would help the current Idaho Center. Tim Sabona has shown us a plan for RV parking. And the Horse Foundation, they're currently trying to raise some money. They're dedicating that money to an RV park if we can do that. And so we wouldn't be in competition for regular RV parks around town. This would just be for events held at the Idaho Center. One of the things that makes us think that that's important is if we ever lost the lease there on the railroad right-of-way where we have 44 spots plus 36 that we can use, if we lost that from the railroad right-of-way anytime, we would have no RV parking on that side. It would be gone. So we just thought that we want to look at it and see what it would cost us to do that. And it's like with a lot of the other improvements that we have put in out there, that we would try to raise the money to do that. We would just need the city's your cooperation in helping us get the sewer line that's dead-ended there by Treasure Valley Way for our hookups and so forth. But again, thank you. The letter explains it, and I have a meeting with them tomorrow. And just to thank you again for your support. And I went to the Cheyenne Rodeo the day after we got through here, and because we hadn't had a rodeo for a day, I needed to go see one. They are landlocked. And that's one of the biggest things that they have coming in there. So that's Cheyenne Days. We went to the one in Deadwood. They're landlocked. They have a small amount. So we appreciate you not landlocking us out there. So thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
I would just like to say thank you. I tell you, the work that goes into that rodeo, as one of the top 5 rodeos in the nation, indoor rodeos, is something that we as a community are very proud of. And I know it takes a lot of work from the board. And so I just want to say thank you. I think you're coming in as the president next year, is that right?
Yes, Mayor.
Yeah, I just thank you. We as a community need to get behind and support the rodeo. It's a wonderful asset to our community, and thank you for all the work. It is awesome.
Thank you, and thank you again for allowing me this time.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Please come forward. And let's see, this guy raised his hand first, and then you're next.
Okay, my name's Corey Chappell.
Hi,
Hello.
Corey.
I wanted to talk about the wastewater upgrade. This is in opposition to that wastewater
Address.
upgrade. I've lived in Nampa for 10 years or so.
Mayor Quinn.
And,
Can we get his address? for the
Address,
record?
there you go.
oh,
Corey,
okay.
thank you.
2011 First Street South,
Thank you.
Nampa, Idaho. I'm gonna start with just a quick quote from Calvin Coolidge, the guy who's able to say no. Collecting more taxes than is absolutely necessary is legalized robbery. And I want you guys to ask yourselves, is this upgrade absolutely necessary? I remember taking a tour about 4 or 5 years ago of the wastewater plant, and I remember at the end, some people in the lab telling us that the water that they put back into the creek is cleaner than the water coming into the wastewater plant. And from my studies, this is not an immediate need, but a politically charged agenda pushed by corporations and non-coordinating federal government agencies. And I say non-coordinating because I don't believe they're coordinating with the people. And I don't honestly think that they're in coordination with the city either. I believe the city has other options, and I think that you should make time to make the appropriate changes for this unnecessary tax. There's other cities that are plagued by this, Wilder and Greenleaf. I actually had a house in Greenleaf, and I talked to other people that live there, and they said some of them are paying up to $200 extra a month more in taxes, and they have to pay that whether they use the services or not. And there isn't in Nampa, I believe it was a 17% raise every year in the than the fees, but there was no end date on when that was gonna quit happening. I believe the upgrade would encourage people moving to Idaho to bypass Nampa, as there would be more taxes to pay. We, the people, would like to know who in the corporations, the names of the people who are pushing us into this bondage, who in the EPA, who's pushing it in the IDEQ, and the corporations. So if you can provide that for us, that'd be great. That's it.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming forward. Thank you for sharing your concerns. There is an end date, but would be happy to have someone, since we've got your address, somebody get back to you with your answers, because that's what's important. So thank you. Yes. And thank you for sharing your name and address and the topic.
I'm Donald O'Remus. I live at 1401 North Midland Boulevard, a trailer park. My wife and I have been residents in Nampa for over 20 years, and we love it here. I'm here to remind the board, and this goes back to the Navy, you have to start at the bottom and work up. This isn't also a city problem, a county problem, a state problem, and a federal problem. My wife and I are retired and live on Social Security. Since 2010, the buying power of Social Security has dropped 34%. At the same time, everything just keeps going up. Our rent in our park in the last 3 years have went up $125. I have nothing against growth. If Amazon wants to put a distribution center out off of Garrity, fantastic. What I'm asking is, remember us. We cannot go to the federal government and say, hey, my rent just went up $125, I need a raise. We're locked in. I mean, even when the COLAs are going on, we're still losing. Bankruptcies for the retired folks is also starting to go up. My wife and myself included, we are facing that right now. I love the city of Nampa. The house that I live in, I don't want to move until they carry me out for the last time. My wife's disabled. The home we have is an open floor plan. It fits her perfectly. To find something else that's comparable would be impossible, particularly at the prices land and everything is going for. So we're kind of stuck. Again, I'm here to remind the board that we retired people, we can't go out and make $18 an hour that they're demanding now. The most I ever made as in an architectural field, I was a nuts and bolts man. I wasn't a licensed architect, but the architect did the design, I did the nuts and bolts to put the structure together. So I'm all for growth. It's just, don't forget the retired people. We're living on fixed incomes, and I mean, even the sewer, I can see what the problem is with the sewer having to go in. It's needed, but $75 more a month, it's gonna kill us, along with the rent increases and everything else. That's pretty much all I have to say, and I thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. I think of it every day, actually, and thank you for reminding us. So, non-agenda item? Yes. And you've heard it said, so name, address, and topic.
Hello, my name is Nathan Stansel. I live at 1915 5th Street North here in Nampa, have for about a year or so now. So, I originally emailed the city council because I had a complaint about noise from the Ford Idaho Center on July 11th. I was encouraged to look into city code and things like that, and have done so, and basically understand that they probably weren't violating any code or whatnot. I do feel the noise level was a bit too much. I live 3 miles away as the crow flies, if you will, not by navigation. And I went outside thinking that it was a neighbor problem, only to discover that I was hearing the event center. So I felt like it was a bit too much. I will call out though since then. I haven't heard it anymore, so I'm kind of a month behind in getting to the council meeting to voice my complaint, but either way, it seems like that was probably addressed or just hasn't been a problem anymore, so either way. But I was asked to come and voice my opinion, so I'm here. In the meantime, I ran into another thing that I figured was worth sharing. I found out that there are volunteers that take care of the process for abandoned vehicles. I feel like that's maybe not quite enough. I understand the dilemma, though, that the city faces in taking care of that. So again, voicing my opinion, please try to work work that process into a more formal process in the future if we could. So, and then along those lines, I actually submitted a police report for some vandalism on my own residence that occurred on the 26th. When I submitted that, I was, as part of that process, it told me I should receive some kind of follow-up from the city police department within 10 days. Today happens to be day 11. I just happened to be at the meeting. I don't mean to make it such a public deal, but either ways, I haven't heard from anybody. I do have video evidence of the culprit, shall we say. So I felt like there was at least some amount of follow-up that should have been done. So I did give something to Sandy that has my information and kind of all that bulleted out, shall we say. So if you need to follow up, feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you so much. And our
Thank you.
police chief is here, and so it's duly noted, and I think you'll be getting some follow-up quickly. And thank you for your comments. We appreciate hearing these comments, so thank you for taking the time to come. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on a non-agenda item?
They're not here.
Thank you for sharing your name and address and the topic.
Thank you. My name is Catherine Wolf, 1906 South Miller Way, Nampa, Idaho. I want to thank you, City Council and Mayor. I thank you very much for having the hearings on the wastewater update. And I went to 2 of them. Very informational, and thank you. I thank you for caring about our waterways and our land. And I thank you that you realize that hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, is crushing to cities and businesses and people. So I thank you for considering the financial aspect of this upgrade. And I also want to thank the Concerned Citizens Group. Their research, their time, their talents, their courage in bringing forth new information and ideas and suggestions. Good job, guys, good job. I was impressed. This is really and truly the beauty of America and our political system and our Constitution. And in Nampa, you do listen to your people. Thank you. May God help us with this very big financial issue in our community. And when I talk to my friends, neighbors, many people talk about all the many people that are moving in. And they should be helping with this. And our access fees and our hookup fees should be much higher, according to a lot of my friends and myself. So thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Hello.
Hi, Kenny Roten, 4537 East Tuscany Avenue, Nampa, Idaho. And I was on the committee for the Stampede Community Festival. And I want to thank the mayor and the council and city for all of your help to help make that a success. You heard from Curtis Homer, and of course everybody knows what a success the Stampede was. The week prior to that, we lead up to that with the Kiwanis Steak Fry on Thursday night, the Firefighters Burnout Fund on Friday night, the Boys and Girls Club with their breakfast, Rotary and Kiwanis, we all go help them with the breakfast. And this year, we couldn't have done it without the help of the city. You know, your Parks and Rec guys were great. I mean, really, bringing it back to Lakeview Park. We had a lot of positive comments about that. We couldn't have done it without the help of the Stampede directors as well, helping with all of the stage and generators and things that just made it possible. I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to all of you that you came out, you supported it. Some of you helped us, you volunteered, and it was hot, it was hard, it was busy, but I think we had a great turnout. It seemed to be a great success, and we hope to even build it bigger and better next year as we lead up to the Stampede. We hope to build this community event to something that as I keep getting reminded, boy, years ago, we sold 1,200 steaks at this thing. You remember Farm City Night? We had the tractors, and we had the siphon tube contest and things like that. And hopefully we'll be able to build it into something like that again that is a larger community event and really involve as many in our community as we can. But I wanted to say thank you for the help and support you gave us. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. I don't know, how many got to go to the festival? Few? I was out of town and I missed it. Kenny, thank you to all of you. Jim, thank you for your work. That's amazing, and so I look forward to next year.
Mayor Kling,
Yes.
if I could, Kenny, would you stand up? He was recognized as one of our best volunteers in Nampa under 2C of the Treasure Valley. So thank you, sir.
Okay, so are there any other non-agenda item individuals that would like to speak tonight? Okay, seeing none, now we're moving to agenda items. Is there anyone here that would like to speak for 3 minutes on an agenda item? Okay, I see one. Mr. Harriman? Oh, I'm sorry, was your hand up? I missed it, excuse me. So you'll be second. Okay. So as you come forward, I've said this so many times, but name, address, even though you've been with us before, and the topic.
And your name is? Ronald Harriman, 329 Creekside Place. Tonight you are going to consider a contract with Brown and Caldwell. I've still been researching. I promise you that I've been passing through the phosphorus and the actual end result of that phosphorus for the past 2 weeks. And I want to just ask the council to use your conscience tonight when you vote on this particular issue and make sure that you have a back door on it. Thank you.
Thank you. And you know the ropes. I won't say it one more time.
My name's Clarence Solari. I live at 704 South Pine Street in Nampa, Idaho. I'm here to talk tonight on the Nampa School.
Pictures.
Thank you. Nampa School parking. In 1998, the residents went together and put a petition together, and in their infinite wisdom, the council and the mayor decided to make it 2-hour parking. That has been in effect for 20 years and has not worked to date. And in the interim, the school has decided to close campus, open campus, close campus, and now it's open again, which makes it extremely bad in our neighborhood. We have litter. We have children doing things that they shouldn't do in cars in front of our homes. We have children taking residents to task over parking. We had one instance where a student threatened to drag a gentleman out of a car and beat him because he was parked at his friend's house. And, you know, there is not a day go by that I can't walk out and be verbally and or physically confronted in front of my home and in the alley behind my home. I've called the police on several occasions for students back there smoking marijuana. I've called the police. We've called the police over kids doing what they shouldn't do in front of the homes, and it took 45 minutes for the police officer to show up. That's unacceptable. We have parking issues where we have people that have medical conditions and they cannot get their nurses in and out of the home because their student parked in front of their houses. They go out and ask them to move. They get told where to go with the F word. And it's on a daily basis. I have had students parked crossways in the street. I pull up, I give them 30, 40 feet to get out of my way. They sit there and they start screaming at me in the car. They're just, they're rude. And they need to be taken to task. They need to be taught what they should do and what they shouldn't do. And what they shouldn't do is they shouldn't park on the street in a residential area. We have talked to the school. I've made 4 attempts to go over and talk to the superintendent. 3 times he was sitting in his office and he wouldn't talk to me. That was the last superintendent, not the gal that's there now. So I've given up on the school. When the gentleman was there prior to the principal that's there now, he and I had a good working relationship. Campus was closed. I was actually taking pictures of, and I'd have sometimes 300, 400, 500 pictures a day of students cutting school, walking up and down the alley, walking up and down in front of my house. And we just need to get it, we need to get the parking situation first. And if we can get the parking situation, then we can start working on getting the rest of the school where we want them. And I don't mean that where the community wants them, but you know, we have pictures of students that I'll give to the mayor, and she can circulate them around. These are the petitions which she already has. Be happy to have you guys look at this stuff. This is crazy. You know, when we have Olive, you can't park on Olive. Pine, a third of Pine is constantly inundated with students. And what they tell us is they don't want to have to walk from the school parking lot up to class. Not my problem, but it is my problem. So anyway, thank you very much.
Terrence, thank you. Thank you for coming forward and speaking. Is there anyone else? Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
I was just going to follow up with that if I might. I've just recently been made aware of the situation, and I have driven up and down the streets, and it really is out of control, and I do hope that we can address it in some manner to make it a workable situation.
And it is on the agenda tonight for council approval. So we look forward to that.
Yeah,
Is
And
there any way?
So I tell you what, let's shift because we only have 3 minutes. So come up and give your name and address, and you get the next 3 minutes.
Karen Baker,
Thank you.
715 South Pine. Is there any way that we could get a meeting with the school board, the principal, and you guys, and the neighborhood to convince them to take care of the kids and get them out of our neighborhood so we don't live in the middle of the dump? We're not considered a parking lot. We don't have to listen to foul language and stuff like that.
Karen, with the decision that the council will make this evening, when we change to residential restricted parking in a school zone, then there will be no parking allowed on your street. And so that's at all, between the hours of 8 and 4.
Okay.
And that is before the council this evening. And so we'll be discussing that and making a decision on that this evening. And then a little bit later, Bobby Sanchez will give a report to the council on the communication that's taken place and the plan that is currently in place
Okay,
with the school. So I think we're going to get there.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here tonight wishing to speak on the parking situation that will be on the agenda a little bit later? Okay. You're here to say you agree? Okay, so there's several of you here tonight. Okay, thank you. And you're here too. And we have a few other emails to support these individuals also. So thank you for being here, and thank you for showing your support, and appreciate the petition and the signatures. So is there anyone else here to speak on an agenda item, and a different agenda item? Seeing none, we will move on to mayor and council comments, and I don't have any comments. I've made my comments as we've gone along. Council, do you have any comments or updates that you'd like to provide this evening? Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is our agency and external communications, and our report tonight is going to be with Rhonda with Valley Regional Transit. And Rhonda, thank you for providing a report.
Thank you. Rhonda Shelbert, Valley Regional Transit, 700 Northeast 2nd Street, Meridian. So thanks for having me back. While they're getting everything set up, I'd like to introduce my team. We have Billy Wingfield, he is our Operations Director. Leslie Pedroza is our Compliance Officer, and then Greg Eisenberg is the General Manager over Ada and Canyon County Operations. So, as I stated, I'm going to be here a lot more. So here's my second time. So I'm back. I did listen to the July 19th budget workshop that was had here in July. And so I am back asking for the full amount that we did request, the $442,000. What I would like to show you is that we are updating our ridership reports. Last time we reported through February through May, and now it's February through June. And so our average has been staying about the same, about 5,600 for the inter-county routes per month, and about 6,000. So 5,600 average between October and January, and then between February and June, it's about 6,000. And so on the local routes, the October through January, it was about 4,800 per month, and February through June is now 46. So it's remaining relatively flat, is what we're seeing. These are the ridership by types. Based upon the request from Councilmember Bruner, we've actually started a project on what information we can share on data privacy and such. So we will be working on that to determine, we do have smart cards and how much of that information we can actually share. So we'll be working on that. So we do have some service changes that are coming up on the fixed route services. In the beginning, we were proposing not a whole lot of changes, but with the cut of $75,000, we'll be looking at reducing service on the 51. The inter-counties, we'll go through those. So this is basically the new Canyon County services that will be proposed and are going to go out for public hearing either in August or September. So the 40, and I've got to look here. So the 40 is to serve downtown and Boise State in a one-way loop rather than a two-way hook. The 42 will go from Happy Day Transit Center to Town Square Mall to serve the growing areas around Franklin and Overland. So the 44, it used to go all the way into downtown, and it will now end at the Valentine Park and Ride in Eagle. And I guess if you have any questions, I'm going to make the assumption you'll stop me.
Well, what I'm thinking is, can you go back to, where are they going through Nampa? Where are these riders, where are the riders being picked up in Nampa?
So you can, so these are the actual stops themselves. So you can see, so this route actually goes this way. It goes to the CWI main campus. Then it goes along Franklin, comes down on 10 Mile, goes through Overland, and then into Town Square Mall.
And what is the road that, the different stops, that's on what? Where you see the stops as it starts? After Happy Day Transit, that's on Nampa Caldwell Boulevard?
Correct.
And then it goes over to
The Midland Boulevard and Marketplace.
Marketplace area, and then it travels down Cherry
Cherry
Lane?
Lane,
And
yep.
so you have several pickup places on Cherry Lane?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so this route is going to stay consistent?
Right, and
Is
this
that
is
correct?
these are the proposed changes to 42. I don't believe that 42 goes along Cherry.
The only change to 42 is it being truncated back to the Town Square Mall, and that's to improve the connections to the other system, which will essentially bring everyone into downtown.
Okay, so someone could get on in Nampa, any of those locations, go to the Town Square Mall, then they're going to catch a different bus to go on downtown?
Yep.
Okay.
So the 51, this is the 51. So with the reduction in our request, this is what we're proposing to change. The 51 has low ridership, and so what will happen is that we will operate this during peak periods, and I'm going to move ahead and then I'll go back. So basically, this is the current schedule for the Route 51. So what we're proposing, right now it's on a 30-minute frequency, and what we will do is we're proposing, we still are refining the numbers, is that we're hoping that we can keep the peak periods on 30-minute frequency and then eliminate the midday routes. So what that does mean is that, So you have complimentary paratransit, which is that if you have a senior or disabled person and they can't ride the fixed route bus, they can call and schedule a pickup and be able to be picked up and then taken as long as they're within 3/4 of a mile of a fixed route. So with that, with reducing the midday service, one of the things that we are having to look at is that with the complimentary paratransit service, the federal government allows us to do an 80-20 match. 80 cents federal, 20% local. Since we will not be running in the midday, that is no longer considered complimentary paratransit. It is considered beyond ADA service. Therefore, we will have to look at a different match ratio for that. We'll try 50-50, but we're still working through those numbers. So that is one of the things also, that it's not just the fixed route service that gets affected, but it's also the complimentary paratransit.
And could you, I know we can see the map, but would you just do a real quick, with your pointer, show us that route, talk us through the route?
So I'm actually going to have Brian come up and talk you through the route because they know them a lot better than I. Thank you.
So the route starts at the south end at Greenhurst and 12th, goes up in a one-way loop to turn the bus around again to go. And then along Holly, around NNU, through downtown, along Garrity up to CWI, and then returns, goes back.
So that has been running all day
Yep.
in that route? Okay. And then we'll just it'll be dropping off the middle. So every 30 minutes, a bus was coming to one of those stops?
In the peak hours,
Peak
it was
hours.
30 minutes, and then middle of the day, it would drop down to 60 minutes.
Okay. Was there also a route that they were catching another bus? If someone lived on Greenhurst, could they catch a bus to get to work at Boise? Was there a place that they could connect with another route to go on in?
Yeah, so there's a couple of options with that. They could take the 51 up to downtown and then get on the 52 up to Happy Day Transit Center, or they can take it up to CWI and take one of the intercounty routes from there.
Okay, and there were intercounty routes running from CWI on a regular basis? Okay. But we'll miss that midday, so they'll only have a morning and a late afternoon connection opportunity? Okay.
So Madam Mayor, if I may, so I know you're working on trying to get individuals, so do you don't have any idea as far as how many, not number of rides, but individual riders per day you've been averaging, say, the last 60 days on this route specifically?
No, we don't. And like I
Okay.
said, we're going to.
You're working towards that, I understand. Just curious if you say it's a slow, so you have some indication it's not a
Right.
real busy route, so, okay.
Thank you for answering those questions.
Thanks.
Yep. So I did put in your packet, there was a 2015 rider, non-rider survey that Compass completed, and so they did interview quite a few. They actually rode the routes in 2015. So I wanted to put these key findings in just to kind of, 39% are with households with less than 15,000 in annual income, and 58% of them are employed, and 52% do have a valid driver's license. So I thought that was really interesting. And then most of them, they're originating from their home, and they're doing work or work-related activities. So, and a lot of the riders, 90% of them, they walk as their mode of access to get to public transportation. So I put the entire report in your packet, so I thought it was interesting and was starting to answer your question. So I wanted to bring up also about the amounts that VRT requested. So in FY18, we have assessment and dues, and that's based upon per capita, and then we have a service contribution. So in FY18, we requested just under 39,000, and then our service contributions were about 300,000 for a total of 357,000 total. What was approved was 350, but we actually only billed 349 because our requested assessment was only 38 and you approved 40. So we didn't bill you for that additional funds. But as you can see, we were unable to get the full fixed line service for about $7,800. So in FY '18, we requested, or this is FY '19, I apologize, 40,000 was requested, and another 400,000 in service assessments. So you were correct today that the overall request is about 100,000 more than. So based upon the budget workshop, 367,000 was approved. So in our overall request, it's a drop of about 75,000. I do want to bring to note, so what happened is that we determined that we were under billing, and that's where the shortfall came in. So part of the regional or assessments were not properly billed out in the estimates that were sent out in April. So in reality, your assessment should have been closer to $112,000. So just for a heads up, in FY '20, we will be asking for somewhere around $524,000. And we will be back in front of you more often to let you know where we're at, how we're calculating it, so that you can know that as well. We're working through that with our board as well. So any questions on the assessments? So what I would like to request is that Nampa would reconsider the amount that they included in their budget packet. If even just to go back to the original request for 300, I did not put the amount in, but the amount minus the 70,000, at a minimum, fund the entire request that was presented in April, which would cover the 5,000 that is not included in the fixed line service.
Bruce?
Madam Mayor, are you finished with your presentation?
Yes.
Thank you. On the largest bus in Nampa, how many seats are in that bus?
28 to 32.
And then on the medium-sized bus that I usually see, how many seats are on that one?
28 as well.
'Cause there's a pretty long bus I just saw a little bit ago.
They are 40-footers. A lot of times they have more room in them for wheelchairs and such.
And that was 30?
44 for the largest.
44. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, thanks for your presentation. So you mentioned that you listened to the workshop. I had a lot to say in the workshop about this issue. I'm the one who said I had a problem appropriating the full ask that you were asking for. And so I made a suggestion to approve a 5% increase over what we gave last year. I was using that as a framework based on the fact that city employees hopefully are getting a 2% pay increase. And I didn't know how much of what the ask was related to wage increases, which I understand were necessary from your viewpoint for drivers, because you're having a tough time paying drivers. I just had a tough time with those wage increases and then just asking us to pay for those wage increases if they were to exceed the percentage that we were paying our city employees. So I'm willing to, if you can quantify a little bit better where perhaps I'm wrong, but that was kind of where I was coming from. And I'm also curious, you guys are doing a good job. I'm glad that you're here before us. I'm still a little frustrated. I don't know if Darrell's frustrated, but he keeps asking for numbers, and it's very difficult to try to do outcomes-based investment of funds. You heard some of our citizens speak earlier about how their fixed incomes are, our water rates are going up, the recycle rate went up. There's lots of rates that are going up, and a lot of people have a tough time trying to justify us giving you more money when we don't have the counts that Councilman Bruner is asking for. So that's just one difficult problem I have. And I don't know if you got a raise over the last 5 years and what those percentages are. I'm sure that I can get that information through a public information request. But again, those are sort of the questions that the citizens are asking. If our city employees are struggling to get tight raises, COLA increases, I just have a problem giving you the full ask. So that's, I'm just speaking for myself because I did speak a lot from standpoint. I think maybe you need to recover some of that money through a rate increase, a percentage, move it more towards a user fee model. I understand that we're still going to subsidize in a large amount, but a user fee, the cost is what creates incentives and adjustments in behavior, not just from your standpoint and trying to prioritize and reallocate money based on rates. It makes sense. I used public transit growing up, so I have nothing against public transit. But it makes sense during peak hours, a half hour, and then you're saying hour, midday. I mean, it makes sense if the user demand goes down. And so, and I realize you mentioned an 80-20 matching fund. The way the government subsidizes and grants money, it actually sometimes incentivizes inefficiencies. And I just have a tough problem with continuing to just keep doing something so we qualify for grant money, and that's not the smart way to try to do business. And I understand that the challenge here is this is an amenity like a school park, and it shouldn't be for profit, but at the same time, there isn't an incentive in trying to create efficiencies. Although I hear that you're trying to make adjustments, you're trying to prioritize routes where there's higher demand. I just think on our end, what's trying to force the incentive is there's less money to work with, try to make it work. And just for the record, I approved us spending more money than we gave last year. I just wanted to cap it at around a 5% increase, just because there's other demands in the city and a 5% increase over last year. So I know I said a lot in that workshop. It's again, I just have a problem until there's more information. Making those adjustments seem wise. I think waiting, when I was a kid, I think we had to wait like 40 minutes for the bus. That was worst case scenario. You just missed the last bus, you had to wait 40 minutes for the next bus. And I realize increasing level of service or trying to maintain level of service when you have a strained income and there's escalating costs for other things in the city, I just have a tough time. I want to see it more a user fee model. Again, still conceding that we're going to subsidize a large portion of that. I just don't want to make decisions based on, well, you're going to lose federal grant money if you don't have this route. Well, how many people are using that route? You know, and is that a wise, just because we get 80% from the federal government doesn't mean it's necessarily, you know, a good deal if it's just incentivizing a route where there's not max capacity users. So I'll be quiet now.
You're welcome to.
So the complimentary paratransit is helping seniors and disabled, and so the federal government is for that. If we offer it, but it's only offered at the time that the fixed route is offered. So what it means is that we will have to use more local funds to support that if there is the demand there. So just, I wanted to make you aware of that as a business decision. We have already increased our drivers' wages. They were making $9 an hour, and now they're making $11. And in this current market, my husband has a construction company, and he's like, send him my way, because he'll pay him 15 to 20. So it's very hard to keep drivers you know, going when they can make a lot more in other industries, especially in this market. So, and quality public transportation, a lot of it is built upon frequency, and the frequency that we have in this area is very poor. So, you know, there's the analogy that if your car only started once an hour, would you use it? And so in order to get the ridership, we need to increase the frequency here. And so does that mean that we just run inter-counties? You know, but we are also a regional system, and when we have one partner that's not, you know, pulling their fair share, it hurts the rest of the region as well. So it's very hard to be able to, you know, Meridian was asking the question, well then, you know, we have agreed to the increase, so does that mean that we don't have to pay it? So we're having to go back and take a look at this. We are a small staff. There's only 4 in my department, including me. We're looking at these, trying to figure out how to do this and also in an efficient manner, and the best that will help serve, you know, the members of your community. And that's what we're here to do, is to serve your community and help provide them with transportation. And in your comprehensive plan, one of the big items that they brought up is that they want more public transportation and interconnection between the cities. So I guess I would just...
Yeah, it's just one follow-up question.
Yes.
Mayor. what about increasing the fee by 10 cents a user?
We did a fair analysis a couple years ago, and we have been working towards those. We kind of took the low-hanging fruit, eliminating, we had a lot of fair products, which was costing us money. We had, one-day pass, a week, 30-day, 60-day, and then 6 months. So we have been combining some of those, and it is on our thing to look at. In order to do a fair increase, we have to go out and do a lot of public comment, but we will probably be looking at that for FY20 to include into our budget.
So you're saying no fare increase until potentially FY 2020 after a process of public comment?
Correct.
So even a small incremental 5-cent increase, it would take several years, a couple years.
So
before.
what that would do is that our FY20 budget season starts in January of 2019. So we would start getting prepped and ready and looking at that because it has to go into our budget. And our budget, we present our preliminary budget in April, and then it's approved in July, and then it starts in September. So just like if you guys were going to propose a new increase, it probably, your FY19 budget is already set. And so in order to propose an increase, it would go into your FY20 budget as well.
Are there any further questions? Rhonda, thank you. That was very informative, excellent presentation. We appreciate the updates. Thank you very much.
And I guess our senior planner, Stephen Hunt, will be here on August 20th to talk to you guys about the service changes.
Thank you. So, council, with your approval, I would like to shift our agenda just a little bit. We have a number of people here on 2 action items that are actually new business. And our unfinished business is, and our staff reports are people that are going to be here. So I'd like to ask, with your permission, I'd like to move to the 2 items. One is new business 6.1, which is the Fall River subdivision request for reconsideration. And then the next one that we'll do immediately after that, before we move to public hearings, is action item 6.8, which is the citizens requesting change for the residential restricted parking. Are there any concerns over that move? No, are you good? Okay. So let's move to action item 6.1. And this is a request for reconsideration of denial of the conditional use and development agreement modification for the Fall River West subdivision. The letter was in your packet, if you all have had an opportunity to review that letter. And with that, as we understand from on reconsideration requests, it's not an area that we really discuss. I would like to defer to legal counsel, Aaron, to give us some direction on this particular item. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. So you have before you the written request. We reviewed this in the past before, but I'll go through it briefly again. The city code provides that a request can be made for reconsideration under certain circumstances. Briefly, the criteria are that, let's see, first of all, that it be made in a timely manner. This was. But it should demonstrate that the party requesting has relevant information that was not previously presented, and in his response to something brought up at the previous hearing, that the information was not previously available, or that it's being made pursuant to Idaho Code Section 6765-35-2B, which is a provision of state code that requires in certain circumstances that a reconsideration be brought. The letter before you which should be the sole basis of your request, as the mayor indicated. My recommendation would be to limit it and not have any discussion on this matter. But it refers to a legal opinion that was presented by Ms. Erickson at this particular hearing, and then refers to a provision of the development agreement. Actually, it was one of the standard provisions near the end of that agreement. Wanted to read to you just to refresh your recollection. There's a unique provision in this agreement, actually came in the amendment, which provides, and I'll read the relevant portion.
I'll summarize part of it. It speaks to the fact that this can be assigned, and then it goes on, and this is halfway through provision, paragraph 9 in the amendment. It says, however, be it furthermore understood by the parties that transfer, sale, assignment, or other conveyance of any of the individual buildings associated with this agreement to another person or party prior to finalization of construction and approval of occupancy of that building by the city shall not occur nor be allowed. Thus, SKC shall not be only the owner-developer, but also the builder of the apartment buildings. In essence, this was a unique provision. You don't see this often in a development agreement, but the council at that time, and I'm reading into this, was convinced that that particular builder would do a good job, and that was added as a condition, that no one else could come in and build, that he was there. Our legal opinion has not changed on that. If you desire to discuss it or you believe that the standards met, you should vote yes, and it would come back through the process. If you don't believe they've met that standard, you should vote no, and a new, this matter could be amended perhaps in a new proceeding that could be brought back, but not as part of a reconsideration. So with that, my recommendation would be to make an up or down vote, not discuss the matter, and then if the vote is yes, it will come back and there will be a de novo hearing as indicated under the ordinance.
Bruce?
Madam Mayor, fellow council members, I move that we deny the request as presented.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Mayor, council, I did not vote on the initial motion, so I talked to Aaron a little bit legal, and I'm going to recuse myself from voting to deny reconsideration since I wasn't part of the initial vote to begin with. So.
Okay. Further discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
No.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
And that count is?
4-1.
Okay. So the motion passes, which is the denial of the reconsideration. Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 6.8 on the agenda. And this is the citizen request to change the certain streets around Nampa High School to residential restricted parking, and those certain streets are Pine, Olive, and Stadium. I believe Bobby Sanchez has a staff report for I should finish my sentence. Bobby Sanchez has a staff report for council.
Mayor and members of the council, about a week ago, the city was in receipt of a petition signed from about 48 citizens that reside in the area of Stadium, Olive, and Pine Street, vicinity of Nampa High School, requesting for your consideration that that area be designated from a 2-hour restricted zone to a residential school restricted zone. Just give me a minute here to orient you to the graphic that's up on the screen. This is really for the, I know you have this in your council packet. This is really for the benefit of the public that's watching live stream or those that are here in person. So the area that we're talking about this evening is
Bobby, could we get a pointer? Because if you're not in the mic, no one can hear you. Thank you. You'll have to stay right there on the microphone.
Okay, so the area that we're talking about right here, this is Nampa High School. This is the track, Lake Lowell Avenue, West Dewey Avenue, 12th Avenue. We're talking about the area that is south of Dewey Avenue and north of Lake Lowell Avenue, the streets of Stadium, Pine, and Olive. Currently, this area that I just pointed out is designated as a 2-hour restricted zone. With, I think, about 18 to 20 signs that are split between Stadium, Olive, and Pine Streets that you see up on the screen. What the members of the community are requesting in their petition is that this area be designated as residential parking during the hours of 8 to 4 on the school days. When we look over the course of the last year, City Hall has received numerous complaints by residents that live on Stadium, Olive, and Pine about the non-compliance, if you will, of people who parked in the 2-hour designation zone, if you will. Between code enforcement and law enforcement, over the last year, they issued over 380 citations to violators of the 2-hour parking zone. Other challenges that they communicated to City Hall had to do with trash and debris and inappropriate activity that had occurred inside vehicles by people that parked there. You heard some of those comments by Mr. Clarence Solari, who spoke during the 3 minutes this evening about the agenda item. As a result of this petition, Mayor Kling asked me to form or convene a parking committee is designated or required in our ordinance when these issues come up. We formed a committee that was representative of law enforcement, code enforcement, engineering, and streets division. Those representatives are here tonight as subject matter experts to address any of your questions or to add more detail about this issue. The committee spoke about 3 things and studied this issue really in 3 areas. What we spoke about was the cost to do this. We spoke about the enforcement or how this would be enforced if approved by the will of the council. And then the education piece, how we would work closely with the Nampa School District and Nampa High School. So I just want to talk briefly about those. First with the cost. This chart just depicts the price breakdown. Really, the bottom line is that to do this change from the 2-hour restricted to the residential restricted would be about $881. Now, next to the enforcement piece of this, the representatives that we had from the law enforcement and code enforcement said that this would be easily enforceable. In fact, that compared to the 2-hour restricted, that this would be much easier to enforce because it would require less frequency in terms of the number of patrols that they would have to do through that area, as opposed to do it every 2 hours to look for violators. They would just go through once a day, and then or once in the morning, then once in the afternoon. The next piece has to do. So I talked earlier about the cost. I talked about the enforcement. Now it's about the education. We talked with the school district superintendent, Dr. Keller, who is supportive of this. We talked to the principal of Nampa High School, Diana Molina, who is supportive of this as well. We'd work closely with those two and the school resource officer on an education effort starting as early as this week on Wednesday during registration at Nampa High School so that parents and students could be aware of this potential change and what that means in terms of the restrictions. And then for the first 2 weeks that this is in effect, code enforcement, law enforcement would issue they would issue warnings and no citations. I'm going to defer now to members of the Streets Division or Code Enforcement or Law Enforcement that are here this evening, as well as open the floor to you, Mayor and Council, for any questions that you might have.
Mayor, if I may, Colonel Sanchez, as far as the parking lot that was mentioned at Nampa High, so the capacity of the parking lot at Nampa High is sufficient for the students?
The school district and the high school communicated to us that they are at max capacity now for the parking lot. They do have in the works several options or alternatives to alleviate or to mitigate that. No final decisions have been made. They do have to finalize some plans and then make some budget or funding decisions, but they are working towards a solution to address the limited capacity.
So a follow-up, if I may. So my question is then, the school is starting here in just about 3 or 4 weeks. So for students that are driving to school, for those who are a little later than others, where from a city standpoint, do we expect them to park?
There is let me put the sketch up. There is available parking right here adjacent to the stadium
On
there
Can-
on the
Canyon?
track. On,
Canyon.
yes, that's Canyon Street. The challenge is from a student perspective, that's a greater distance, I think, to walk to their classes versus where they used to just park across the street.
Well, I'm making a personal statement. I'm not concerned about the distance. I just want to, make sure they can park where they can get to class. And so Canyon Street is the same proximity as the school. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
The juniors can park there.
There's also available parking on the school district office. I don't know how many, I've been there a number of times, and there's plenty of available parking at the, would you point to the school district office?
Okay, I think it's this building right here, Mayor.
It is, and that's the parking lot just to the north.
Right. That's on Canyon also, I believe.
Yes, it is. And there is a new, I don't know if it's an official hawk light, but there is a crossing light there for safety purposes.
Thanks.
Mayor, Bobby, I have a concern. You're pointing out Canyon. I just wonder if there's capacity if they issue permits for the limited number of spots based on demand. If Canyon can accommodate some of it, I'm just wondering if the residents on Bird, Colorado, and are going to be before us in 3 months saying that all the kids are parking on their streets. And
Councilman Hoagland, that's a good observation, a good point. We did discuss that in our committee. We did consider including that into the restricted zone, but at this time, because we have not had that petition or that engagement with the community members in this area, and only this area up here, we are coming forward with our recommendation of their petition to redesignate this to residential restricted.
all right, thank you.
Madam Mayor, fellow council members, Bobby, how many citations did you say were issued last year?
Councilman Skog, it was over 380.
So has any other entity in the city of Nampa issued 380 citations for their business people or people who go to their business or any other?
Great question, Councilman Skog, not to my knowledge, but I'll defer to our law enforcement or code enforcement that's here this evening.
But it's a little disappointing that our students would behave this way, that is as represented. And if it was some other business, it'd become a public nuisance that was doing that. So I want fast action. Thank you for working on this.
Sandy?
Mayor, thank you. Some of the council members have already asked my questions or made my comments, but I do want to follow up on the 380-plus violations. Have they been cleared up? Were they rectified, ignored? What kind of happened with that?
Councilman Levi, thank you for the question. I think Kent Lovelace is here from Code Enforcement. I'm going to defer to him on that.
Thank you. And I will have follow-up questions.
Madam Council. Yes, a lot of them are paid. A lot of the parents or kids come in to pay them. If they are not paid, then they, in a certain amount of time, then they get sent to collections.
So are there repeat offenders?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And Bobby, I'll follow up with a few comments, and I don't know if we need to delegate those out too. Kind of following up with what one of the other council members said, is one of my comments was, it's much needed that we have the signs there on those streets, but what happens to the surrounding streets, and we're going to be conquering the same issue, so are we just pushing it elsewhere? And so I'm going to make kind of a harsh and daring statement. There's a behavior that needs to be changed. Instead of continuing to accommodate and push them around, we need to, one, find a way to change the behavior, correct the behavior, and secondly, encourage the school district that you're in contact with to come to a solution instead of our citizens having to bear the brunt of the behavior.
Thank you, Councilman Levi.
Thank you.
That said, I think our citizens that are sitting here would agree with that, and they've made similar comments. But needless to say, it's been very challenging, and that's why it's our recommendation that we address this situation. We recognize it may broaden it. However, to address it, as Bobby has already said, on the other streets would actually cause us not to accomplish this now, and we feel it's very important that we accomplish what our citizens have asked prior to school starting.
I agree.
So, and yeah, agreed.
Mayor Kling. Bobby, I went by these streets at noon, and I was amazed at what kind of stuff was going on there. In fact, I almost called Joe Huff and asked him to give me my uniform back. I'll take care of that right now. No, Joe, I'm just teasing.
Volunteer right here.
But I'll tell you, we are in a position that we've got to do something, and I agree with Councilman Levi about behavior, and our kids in school need a behavior issue to be taken care of. But right now, let's take care of our neighbors, and so that's where I'm headed with this.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez.
Madam Mayor, are we ready to take action on this?
We are, and I want to tell you about a formality, actually, or Aaron can share with you a formality. We are looking for action tonight. Then this is the however that he will share.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. This came together very quickly. There's one procedural step that needs to be taken before it can be given legal effect, and that is that a statement describing the change that needs to occur be distributed to every house in this area. That has already occurred today. B, it needs to be published in the paper. There's no public hearing required. There's no minimum days, no order in which that has to occur. But before it can be made effective, it'll be published. It's prepared to be sent to the paper for publication at the soonest possible day. What we would propose, I have a resolution drafted in the event that you vote to support it. That can be brought back, placed on the consent calendar for the 20th, if that meets with your approval. And it can be approved that day by resolution. It will take effect 2 days prior to school starting, and the goal will still be met, but will comply fully with the ordinance.
Okay. Well, if I can make the motion, I support the action as stated with the resolution being submitted as on the 20th of August. Is that the, okay.
I'll second that.
I think there were a couple of seconds. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Hogaboom,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Skog,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
With that overwhelming support, just know that the signs, the communication has taken place, will take place with our SRO officers, the school district. The kids will be notified in advance, and the signs will be posted prior to school. So it'll be done. So, and as you know, warnings will take place initially before actual fines take place, but that will be done. And so we've got full cooperation, and congratulations. I see a smile. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, so it is now about 12 minutes after 7, and it is public hearing time. So we're going to move to our public hearings. Our first public hearing this evening is 8.1 on the agenda, and this is Beth Heineck, and this is related to the program year 2018 action plan for submittal to HUD. Thank you. So actually, Robin's presenting.
Yes, I am.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. In your council packets, Mayor, Council, in your council packets included was the action plan for program year 2018 and for the CDBG funds. In the action plan and the memo, the staff memo that you received, it outlines how the funds for the allocation in 2018 will be used, as voted on in the council allocation hearing that we had in June. So you heard people present on the different type of projects that they would like to do with the funds for 2018. And you can see that there are funds on the most right-hand column that are projects that are going to use reallocated funds. And so because we're in a public hearing right now, we'll be able to vote on use of 2018 funds, but that will be contingent on the new business items that we have for adjusting the amendments to program year 2014 and 2015, which are on new business items 610 and 611. So the motion for approval of this action plan would have to be adjusted, that the action plan would be approved for 2018 contingent upon the approval of the amendments for PY 2014 and program year 2015.
Thank you for that explanation.
So what's before you is to have the approval of this action plan for CDBG funds for 2018 and to approve for the mayor to sign them and to give them to HUD for, we have a deadline of August 15th to give to HUD for this action plan for 2018.
Perfect. Does council have any questions for Robin? It's pretty easy because we've gone through all of this.
Yep.
Thank you, Robin. But this is a public hearing, and so there is an opportunity for public testimony this evening. And Beth, I don't want to cut you, Robin, excuse me.
Compliment.
So did you have anything else?
No.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is a public hearing and the opportunity for anyone that would like to testify on behalf of the action plan for submittal to HUD. We only had one person signed up, and that was Donald Ormeas, if I'm saying your name correctly, in support of. Donald, are you here? So he maybe didn't stay, but he is in support of the action plan. We had no one signed up that was opposing it. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to speak on behalf of this particular item? I see someone.
My name is Linda Clark, and I live at 2780 South Gatewood Lane in Boise. And I'm here to tell you thank you for your support for the Meals on Wheels program and to encourage your continued support in terms of the Meals on Wheels program. I just wanted to remind you that 96% of the current Meals on Wheels clients are low income. They must meet criteria of being 60 years of age or older, of being homebound, and being unable to prepare their own meals. So the Meals on Wheels program certainly serves a very vulnerable population within our community. We anticipate serving about 100 individuals per day with hot meals 5 days a week, about 175 people total, and we requested an allocation of $35,000. And with that, we were anticipating serving approximately 36,000 meals this coming year. And it will be in that range or a little below. So I wanted to say I am vice chair of the board at St. Alphonsus Medical Center and serve on the foundation board. And in that capacity, I want to thank you for your support and tell you I believe it's a very strong program that does very, very, very strong service to some of our more vulnerable members in Nampa.
Thank you, Linda. Is there anyone else that had intended to speak on behalf of this item this evening that was not signed up? Seeing none, I would, and there really isn't an applicant rebuttal, so there's really, unless you have anything more to say, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council discussion and/or motion?
Mayor Kling, I'd make the motion to adopt the action plan as presented to us in our packet.
I'll second that.
And that is contingent upon the the approval of the other two items, the fiscal year 2014 and 2015 reallocation that needs to take place.
I'll add that to the motion.
And is the second
I'll
agreed?
second. Continue.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's roll call. I apologize.
Brunner,
Yes.
Hogaboom,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Skog,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you for those of you that are here tonight. Thank you for the service that you provide. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you. Okay, public hearing, our second one this evening is 8.2, and this is Ivan Costello of Urban Castle Investments has requested a variance to the City of Nampa Ordinance Section 10-10-6A, which is a minimum property area required, and 10-10-6C, which is a minimum property width for the property located at 408 14th Avenue North in an RD zoning district, which requires a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet. The applicant is requesting the variance for an existing home on a lot comprising of 4,573 square feet and reducing the required 50 feet minimum property width to 35 feet. And the applicant is here with us. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Mayor, thank you. Council.
If I could, before you start, Mayor. Yvonne Castillo, by the way, Mayor, Castillo.
Castillo, excuse me.
Yvonne was just appointed to the Idaho Hispanic Commission by Governor Otter. So thank you.
I appreciate it.
Very good.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
So I'll go ahead and go through the process of the full name and your.
Yeah, my name is Ivan, I-V-A-N, Castillo, C-A-S-T-I-L-L-O. I'm a proud citizen of Nampa, Idaho, 2115 West Habitat Street, 83651. We want to thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to come and present. For starters, there's already a home there. So all we're going to be doing is improving the lot. It's important for me to make of the north end the better end. And I think that by, improving properties out there, we're going to generate that change. So we did all our due diligence with the city. They were grateful and accommodating with answering all the questions that we have. Everything was to process, ready to get approved. And then he says, oh, by the way, we need to come over here to city council. And so had to wait another 4 to 6 weeks. So, you have all the questions in your packet. This is a property that is a 500 square foot home. It was pretty run down. We're basically adding another 800 square feet and a detached garage to make it a 1,300 square foot home to accommodate that big need for properties under $160,000 there in the north end. So, if you have any questions, I can answer those for you at this point.
Seeing no questions at this time, we'll go to staff report, public hearing, and then you'll have the opportunity to come back.
Okay.
To answer any questions.
Thank you.
So thank you. So this is Dan Lister, who is new, if our council has not had the opportunity to meet Dan, with our planning and zoning department. So welcome, Dan. In the public hearing side, you will, and that's next. Oh, okay. Yes, so we'll let you do that in just a minute. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel welcome. Thank you. So this project, as stated in the staff report, this variance, you're looking at a property that's zoned RD, which is a duplex residential. This property was created as part of the Griffith and King subdivision back in 1893. So it's a very old subdivision. The house was built in 1922. Based on evidence found in the assessor's records, it shows that this was split off in 1971. Didn't really get split off in accordance to the ordinance at the time. However, the house has been there, it's been used. Staff did the proper noticing of this. No notice or complaints were received by neighbors around the area, nor did the agencies feel that this was a big concern. The staff was looking at alternatives. Really, there is not any alternative. This is the smallest lot in that area. As the applicant stated, this is a pretty torn up house, needs to be fixed. The only alternative is not to approve it, and it is considered legal non-conforming. It kind of stays as is until they get more land space, which is probably never going to happen. So in this case, staff is recommending approval of this variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Does anyone have a question for Dan?
Mayor?
Yes.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I've had the pleasure to work with Dan at P&Z for Canyon County, and he's done a very nice and thorough job, so we have really found a gold mine for Nampa.
Wonderful.
Good.
So this is a public hearing, and we actually don't have anyone signed up in support or against this, but is there someone here that is not signed up that would like to speak on behalf of this particular hearing?
Yeah, I think I would.
Yes. So come forward and state your name and your address.
I'm glad you're trying to improve our neighborhood, because
I live in El Norte. It's like, that's a good spot. It used to be. I've lived there my whole life. But that house over there has
But
been
I'm going to
home-
have you pause and give us your name and address,
Oh,
and then you can keep going. That's
Oh, I'm
okay.
sorry. I'm Dave Mann. I live at 1424 4th Street North. I'm the alley neighbor next to that house where you're, and so there's been homeless people living there. So it's been a multi-purpose for a long time, you know, so, but anyway, yeah, I'm glad you're coming in and improving that place. So I have no opposition towards you at all. I just want to meet you and I want your name and number so I can talk to you because I'm your neighbor. I've been there for 50 years. And so anyway, that was my only question is who's doing this and what are they going to do? And there's a big tree there. What are you going to do with that tree?
Well, and that's, I'm gonna talk to him
Oh,
next
okay, well
after.
then, okay,
If
so then
this
I
goes
guess I'm
fruition,
done.
We need to talk about, we need to make a lot of firewood. So. And you're very welcome.
I love it. This was good. I love neighbors meeting neighbors. I don't know that I've ever had somebody come up and shake the hand and say, it's so nice to meet you.
I know, because they're
That's
cleaning
good.
it up, I tell you.
Yes. Is there anyone else here? Yes, sir. And thank you for stating your name and your address.
Pedro Garcia, and my mom owns the property right next to where he's gonna fix that house. And I am for improvement of the north side. And the only thing I got to say is that I've been fighting the owner, the previous owner on that property for those trees that are damaging my concrete and damaging the fence. And I'm grateful that he's gonna do something about it. But I would like to see those trees go down as soon as possible.
Oh, you're gonna do it, so.
Oh,
Yeah. I'm gonna hire you to get it done.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on behalf of this issue? Seeing none,
Wait, I just have one more thing to say.
okay.
Back in 1987, I'm Dave Mann, I live at 1424 4th Street North. Back in 1987, they sent out a pamphlet that said, from the city of Nampa, it's like, you know, your sidewalks are in disrepair. And if you don't put a new one in, we're gonna do it for you and we're gonna charge you. Okay, well, we put all new sidewalks in. I live in a corner, the whole piece. You can't see it unless I point it to you, and I don't have that. But we put the whole sidewalk in brand new, and nobody else did. Some of it's grass. You walk around my neighborhood, it's nice sidewalk, grass, chunks of concrete. So it's like, what is the city of Nampa gonna do about the disrepair of the infrastructure? Joe Bell's house, I mean, his curb, you can't even see his curb. So I'm just gonna leave that out there, but it's like, that stuff is just, there's nothing there but weeds and granulated concrete.
So we need to talk to Joe, is
So-
that what you're saying?
No, it's not just Joe Bell.
Go try.
Thank you for sharing your comments. It's appreciated. Yes. And thank you for stating your name and address.
Stephen Taylor, 1412 4th Street North, and we're all neighbors. So the only thing that I wanted to bring up is a tree issue. And the one tree, we can't get insurance because the tree has damaged our roof beyond compare. And it's been that way for years. With the new owner there, hopefully that can be addressed because we want to insure our property. And we can't because a tree is ripping our roof off. And until the tree comes down, it doesn't make any sense to repair the roof. Or else it's just going to keep ripping the roof off. So that's all I wanted to say about it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that is here to testify on behalf of this issue? Okay, so seeing none, this would be the opportunity for the applicant if you had a rebuttal, but it sounds like we're all good. So anything further you need to say?
No, I just want to say that if,
Feel free to come up and use the mic. Thank you.
the only thing I want to say is I just want to thank you. It certainly has been a learning process for everybody involved, and we'll address those trees for sure, for all of you guys. I did notice while going through this process, I think what was important to discover is there's several, maybe a lot of us don't pay attention to, the flood area and things like that, but I think that if the city can look at that section of our, city and see what is it that we can do to be proactive about facilitating. As you know, prices are going up, and for that very same reason, you're going to start seeing areas that they might seem underdeveloped starting to come up, in value and everything. So I just want to urge you, if there's something out there that could be done to encourage that, that's just about it. Other than that, I'm looking forward to making it better, and hopefully it will be a good house for someone to live in. So thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
And second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council discussion and/or motion.
I make a motion to grant the variance as requested from Ivan Castillo. Did I say that right, Victor?
Right on, dude.
To the city ordinance, section 10-10-6A, minimum property area required. Do I have to read the whole thing?
No, as
Okay.
stated. yeah.
As stated, were there conditions for approval? I didn't hear. Yes. With the conditions as listed for approval.
I'll second that.
Further discussion?
Just real brief, I think redevelopment of an existing structure, and I know you're going through all the process and you had to pay $255 and you have to come here tonight and all this. I would support hopefully some sort of way of getting tiered enforcement for redevelopment of existing structures where we can try to forego this process or try to make it easier for redevelopment where it's a net improvement on an existing structure. So I just want to throw my 2 cents in. Okay, yeah, I'm a big supporter of it, and all this red tape is discouraging redevelopment of existing structures. It creates an all or nothing sort of litmus test, but anyhow, just want to say that. Good job.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Skog,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hogaboom.
Yes.
Okay. Item 8.3, this is Dan Neighbor. Okay, thank you guys for being here. Okay, item number 8.3, Dan Neighbor, representing Carrie Little, has requested a variance to the City of Nampa zoning ordinance, section 10-11-5D.2, requiring a minimum of 15-foot setback from the front property line for the property located at 507 South Elder Street in Nampa within the RML zoning district. The applicants are requesting a 1-foot setback from the front property line in order to construct an approximate 9.5-foot deck extending from the front of the house to within 1 foot of the front property line on South Elder Street. So is the applicant here this evening? Thank you for stating your name and address. Thank you.
Neighbor. We live on 11 North Houston Road in Boise, 83706. Okay, so the house was built in 31, so there were no setbacks at the time. My brother-in-law purchased it. It will be a rental for him. There is a 5x7 screened entry. The main entry door is inside this screened and enclosed area with a screen door on the north end and on the east end. The east end is a legal entry. It has a 3x6 foot stoop and 2 steps down to a perfectly good sidewalk. The stoop and the steps are in total disrepair. There had been a great big handicap ramp that ran almost clear to the street when he purchased it. It was in sad shape, so we took it down and discovered the shape of the stoop and the steps. The most economical way for us for a legal entry is to build this deck. It would be about 7 foot by 9 foot, one level, with a new set of steps going down to the perfectly functional sidewalk that is already there. If we were required to tear the old stoop and stuff off, we'd still need a variance because it's in the setback. So we're requesting this so we can do the most economical thing, and it will be a vast improvement on the front of the house and a whole lot less expensive. If we had to tear out the stoop and everything, we'd have to tear out the sidewalk too, and the sidewalk is perfectly good. So it just doesn't make sense to go any other route than the deck. That's what we're requesting.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Neighbor? Seeing none, we'll have the opportunity to have you come back if needed, and so we'll move on to the staff report. So thank you very much.
Hello again, Mayor. Dan Lister again. So I think the applicant stated it pretty well. This is an old house within an old subdivision. The front half has never met setbacks because it was created at a time where it didn't have to meet setbacks. So what they're doing is I think they've removed that ramp, as he said, and they're coming back to fix that stoop area. They need that extra, they encroach into that setback because there's no other way to do it unless you encroach into that setback. The only alternatives for this site really, there really isn't. It's a larger site, but the only access in the back is from the alley. This is not what he's asking for. He's asking for this to repair his stoop, and unfortunately, there's no blanket variance for this. And it's just, this is basically clearing up the title, allowing this person to fix their stoop. So staff is recommending approval.
Thank you, Dan. Are there any questions for Dan?
Question I would have. Is it currently concrete? Is that what it was before?
My understanding, yes, it was concrete.
So why would they want to go back with wood at this point?
Design decision? I'm not quite sure.
Okay,
I'll let the applicant answer that.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Feel free to come forward and answer that question if you'd like to.
The existing stoop and 2 steps are attached to the house. To destroy them would cause us to destroy a perfectly good sidewalk that can be used as a stairway for the entry.
Are you talking about the public sidewalk, or are you talking about on the
private
property?
sidewalk that did connect the stoop and everything with the driveway.
So is there a ramp in the front?
Not anymore.
Okay, so you're putting back in a ramp over the top of the concrete?
We're putting in a 9x7 deck, 1 level, over the top of the stoop, which will be a code height step into the porch area with new steps down to the existing sidewalk.
So you're not putting a ramp back in?
No.
So how is that ADA compliant?
Pardon me?
How does that meet the Americans with Disabilities Act?
I didn't know, well, I don't know.
Well, that's what this is talking about, putting back in ADA compliant access and.
Well, I guess instead
I
of
think-
stairs,
And Dan has an answer to that, so we'll let Dan,
yeah, no, that hadn't been proposed to me.
okay? So Dan, would you like to answer that?
When staff was writing this report, it was initially thought they were putting in a ramp, but really they're putting a decking in. So the staff report is incorrect in that manner.
So it's not handicap accessible?
It's not.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions for Dan at this time? Okay, so we are going to move into a public hearing for public testimony, and there is no one signed up in support of or against this particular issue. Is there anyone here that failed to sign up that would like to speak on behalf of this request? Seeing none, I would like to give the applicant the opportunity to come back if you have anything further that you'd like to share. Is there anything further?
I would just add that if handicap access is an absolute necessary thing to get this done instead of steps, I can put a ramp.
I'm sorry, Mayor Kling. My struggle is, what is the hardship? So that's what a variance is there's a hardship. That's why you're asking.
It's a legal entry.
Okay,
Side, there's another screen door on the north side, but it doesn't have a stoop. It's steps straight down. There's no legal stoop outside of that door. So this is our only legal entry on the elder side.
and that's fine. So my question was, why wood, not concrete? Why an encroachment? If you're just replacing an existing condition because it's in bad shape, that's one thing, but you're not. You're putting something over the top that is almost
Right,
a physical feature that's added to the house.
We intend to completely enclose that and not have it be exposed at all. There'll be a nice redwood deck instead, all 1 level. And, you know, I've done it on several before. But, yeah, it just doesn't make sense to, like I said, if I was to have to tear out this existing stoop and stuff, I'd be destroying a perfectly good sidewalk that can be incorporated into the deck. And I'd still need the variance because it's still into the
So the use of the deck is for what then?
entry, main entry.
Entry only and not a place to sit? And-
No, No, it'll be it's 7 feet wide, 9 feet out, because that's how far out the sidewalk is where I want to put the new stairs. So it's strictly an entry, you know.
It's kind of hard to visualize, even with your drawings. And you're putting a railing around it as
Oh, yes.
well?
Yeah, there'll be a railing, 2 code around it, steps, 2 code, down to the existing sidewalk. It's 1 level.
Okay. So is there steps then in that drawing that I'm looking at? Where are the steps at?
They're concealed underneath. If you see the 2 posts or 2 squares to the far back, that's the entry wall, that's the foundation wall, and the stoop is back there. And then 2 steps underneath. So that,
I'm sorry, you're Mr.
Dan,
Castillo?
could you point to the area that
Dan
he's?
Neighbor.
Oh, Dan Neighbor. I'm an architect, and I'm having a hard time visualizing what you're showing us
Well,
there.
I'm not an architect, I was a framer forever.
Yeah.
So I don't draw as well, but everybody in the building department told me I had a pretty decent.
Well,
Okay, so the existing stoop is here with 2 steps here. Here's the existing sidewalk. So I would cover posts here, posts here, posts here, and there. It'd be all 1 level, hiding the stoop and the 2 steps, using steps down to the existing sidewalk to the driveway.
so the concrete that you're retaining that's in good shape is where?
Right here. There's a whole sidewalk right here.
So you're covering over a portion of it?
No, actually, I'm not. This isn't the drawing that I submitted secondhand. Yeah, no, this isn't quite what. Okay, this is existing. Here's the entry, screened door there, just stairs, just steps, no stoop. Screen door here, main entry door there, 3 by 72 inch landing, and 2 steps down to this existing sidewalk connecting the driveway,
So the good section of concrete is where?
right here.
Okay.
That's a sidewalk.
So the section between it and the house is,
This is the existing crappy stoop and steps.
so why don't you just replace that portion only? That's just my question.
Because it would be far more expensive to do that than to put a deck on it. And to tear this out, I'd be tearing out a perfectly usable sidewalk.
I don't understand why you'd have to tear out the sidewalk.
Because it's connected.
Okay, you could saw cut, I mean, I'm not gonna get into particulars, I'm trying to justify the variance request, so.
Well, it just seems like this is the most economical way to do it, and I get to take advantage of an existing sidewalk connected to the driveway.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Are there any further questions for the applicant or Dan? Okay, hearing none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council discussion and/or motion?
Mayor Kling, I'll venture with a motion to deny the request. I just don't see the reason that a permanent structure that imposing, that close to the property line needs to be added to just repair a simple access to a building. So that's my motion.
I'll second.
So discussion?
Yeah, my discussion, I guess, is on the economic end of it. The applicant is concerned about the economic cost of this, so, and I'm not an architect, and I have no idea what the difference in economics would doing this deck over just replacing, recovering. So as an architect, Councilman Haverfield, can you speak to that at all, or anybody?
Well, the questions that I've asked, I thought I was trying to understand the reason for the variance, which is a hardship. That's why they asked for a variance. I don't see it as a hardship. If financial, one way or the other, is considered a hardship, I don't see that. I think replacing concrete steps up to an existing stoop off of an existing sidewalk is a lot less costly than adding in redwood or treated material, because if it's not, then it will deteriorate quickly over the top of existing concrete. So I think from a cost standpoint, my opinion is by just removing and replacing the steps only, leaving the sidewalk as it is, connecting to the current right-of-way, would be a less expensive option. Again, I'm struggling trying to visualize what's being shown here, but I do see an existing condition. I think from a cost standpoint, I can't justify adding a big deck out 1 foot off of the sidewalk when all the other properties don't have those type of physical features tied to their buildings. Thanks.
I guess the question I have, though, is, to me, what's being done here is going to enhance the value of the home, which, when you have a 1931 home, it's in the best interest of our community to have citizens that are willing to invest and enhance a property rather than leaving it with. So I guess I'm thinking, I appreciate a homeowner that's willing to invest
And as
and
do I.
actually create that deck and create a better home.
Let me give you a better reason why I would have an issue with it. The size of a deck being 9 by 7, that's a pretty good size area that will encourage someone to sit on it. If it's that close to the right-of-way, a car that's veering or comes off of, that's why there is setbacks to buildings.
For protection.
For protection of the occupants of the building. If a deck is out that close to the right-of-way, they could be hit by a vehicle that is out of control. So that's why we need to honor setbacks. In this case, obviously, it's a existing condition that's nonconformance. We don't need to exaggerate the nonconformance by adding additional features which would draw people closer in a more of a sitting form versus walking on a sidewalk back and forth. I mean, it's different. They can protect themselves, but I just have an issue because it's an extension of the house that way.
Thank you for
That'd be my
ex-
concern just from a practical standpoint.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation.
And Madam Mayor, go ahead, and then I go.
No, Mayor, we get these requests at city council meetings. I kind of come from sort of a common law perspective on trying to adjudicate, arbitrate these sort of matters. And so when there's an applicant who's paid the money and gone through and the house was built prior to the setback standards, what seems to be compelling, and Councilman Haverfield, you are an architect, a very good one. And so I know oftentimes when there's presentations, you find ways to suggest other ways of accomplishing those tasks. And at the same time, I realize that what we're making a decision on is what's brought before us, and the staff, if I heard you right, recommended approval. I have to find a very compelling reason to say no, and I know from an architectural standpoint, you're finding good reasons to deny, and I respect that. However, coming, and maybe I'm wrong, coming sort of from a common law standpoint, if they're absorbing the risk of a car potentially hitting the deck, and the insurance will look at that and insure that home, and they want to assume that, for me, that's creating freedom for people to redevelop their existing structure when the structure was built prior to a lot of these standards. And I know it's a challenge, but I know that this isn't the last time we're going to continue to get these sort of requests of older homes with these setbacks. But I just wanted to communicate my respect for Councilman Haverfield's motion. However, I'm going to be inclined to vote no, I guess, on that motion, because I'd like to support the applicant, especially with the staff condition approval. I think we closed public hearing, so unless the mayor wanted to reopen or we wanted to reopen. But.
Mayor Kling, and I appreciate what you have to say, and I do agree too. I mean, I'm all for redevelopment. I think it's very important, it's vital, and in these older subdivisions as well. I think that there's a more practical way to approach it, and I would then ask Aaron, what, from a legal standpoint, what will we be taking on if they were to build a deck that is occupiable of that size for leisure opportunity out there? Do we incur a liability?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Haverfield, the tort liability on the city would be pretty tenuous to connect those dots. I don't believe that by granting a variance such as this, the city would take on potential liability. I would reiterate the standard before you. Variances sometimes come to you that don't exactly meet the standard, but sound like a good idea. The standard, and it's set forth in the staff report, is that the hardship spoken of should be because of a special characteristic applicable to the site that deprives it of privileges commonly enjoyed by others, and that it's not in conflict with the public interest. Safety is certainly one factor you can consider when considering the public interest. The hardship should result from a special site characteristic relating to the size, shape, or dimensions of a site or the location of existing structures thereon that are unique to that site. You've had before you tonight a proceeding where a person could not rehabilitate the home without a building permit, and a building permit could not be issued because of the circumstances there. If access could not be granted, I guess you should consider whether access can still be obtained to this house under, without granting this variance. That would be the question. Is the current existing condition preventing access to the home? And there may be other options, but that would be the question, and the consideration. Is something about this site unique such that he's being deprived of a privilege available to other houses in the area?
Mayor Kling, it appears to me that Councilman Haverfield has a good grasp on, as a professional as he is. Maybe this is not the right building, maybe it's not the right idea, but I also feel that if the City of Nampa Planning and Zoning, Mr. Lister, approves it, and I'd like to see Mr. Neighbor proceed with his building here, I think I'm going to oppose the motion.
So, Madam Mayor, and I know the public hearing's been closed, and I guess my question, I thought I heard the applicant say this was not going to be for sitting or leisure, and I guess maybe my question, I'm not quite understanding why it's a 7 by 9, why it's that dimensions, but anyway, if that's, I guess, trusting that there's not going to be a safety factor, if there's no one going to be sitting out there, that would be a trusting that you are disclosing. Okay.
I think the reason why the dimension from the house is there is because you have to go out that far to cover the existing stoop. So what he's trying to accomplish is to cover the existing broken steps with the deck and then create new steps. That's why it's pushing it out. So he's using the deck structure to actually conceal the broken stoop underneath. I've done that before actually myself, so I'm familiar with what he's doing. So we have a motion on the table and a second to deny the request, and so we do need to vote on that. And I think you all understand that a yes vote is to deny, a no vote is to not support the vote. And so unless there's further discussion, I think I would stand for roll call.
Rodriguez?
Wait a minute, explain that again. Yes is
Okay.
to deny, no is to approve.
Well, no, I'm sorry. No wouldn't be to approve, it would just be to,
A no for
we would
the,
have to then make a.
no for the motion. How's that?
Okay.
Bruner?
No.
Hogaboom?
No.
Levi?
No.
Skog?
No.
Haverfield?
I'm going to hang on to my motion and say yes.
That might be a good idea. Okay. So with that said,
Don't ever
council,
give
is
me
there
a-
another motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the variance for the zoning ordinance for Dan Neighbor representing Carrie Little with the recommended condition of approval.
I'll second that.
Can you
Okay.
guys give me a chance, please?
Okay, Sandy was that second.
Sandy, you got it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
No.
Skog?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Okay. So, item 8.4, this is Barbara Wade has requested a variance to the City of Nampa zoning ordinance, section 10-8-5-E, allowing no more than 2 accessory structures per property. For property located at 315 South Chestnut Street. The applicants state they wish to construct an additional accessory structure behind the residence. And Norm, well, I guess I should hear from the applicant. Is the applicant present? Excuse me. Thank you for stating your name and address.
Barbara Wade, 315 South Chestnut, Nampa, 83686. And I have a little bit of... Okay, I have a 1941 house, and back then they had the garage as a detached garage. I do have a shed, and then, I don't know where the pointer thing is. Okay, this is Chestnut here. This is Chestnut here. This is the alley here. And I've been told I'm not set back far enough per the 1941 house. This concrete right here, we installed about 8-10 years ago, planning on putting a cover on there. And the concrete's really not usable to sit out there unless you are a sunbather. In the early mornings, you'll get a little bit of shade like right here. But as soon as the sun starts coming this way, this is all in sun until about 7, 8, sometimes 9 o'clock at night. So you can't enjoy it unless you sit in the sun. My setbacks here from the northern border is 7 foot, and from the southern border is 20 foot. And I'm from my fence here, which is not the center of the alley, is 48 feet. So I meet all of the setbacks. I just have, it's going to be a sort of a portable type cover. It's the metal carport type covers that I'm having put on there, if I can get this variance. My husband is disabled, and he can't take the sun either, so he's pretty well limited being in the house. And this right here is like 7 foot. There's really no space there to be sitting out of the sun and stuff, so that's what I got.
Are there any questions for the
Mayor
applicant?
Kling?
Yes.
For the applicant. So you're just going to set this on an existing concrete slab that's there? Or?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so you're not, it's not a permanent foundation that is being put on?
No, it's just, it's 4 feet deep, or 4 inches deep, and it's 28 by 18, that's concrete, and the structure's only 16 by 26, so it sits down. They do have to put some bolts into the concrete so it doesn't blow and hurt somebody.
Right.
But that's the only part that's going to be attached. It's going to be 2 to 3 feet from the garage and 2 to 3 feet from the house, so
So it's a metal structure?
Yeah.
Okay, and is it open air, or are you going to have it conditioned inside?
Open air.
Okay, so, all right. You don't have to worry about frost heave then?
No.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Norm, would you like to provide staff report?
What the variance is requesting here, you can typically have 2 accessory structures. She has 2 with the shed and the garage. So to add the cover over the patio creates a 3rd accessory structure. And so that is the variance that's being sought on it, is allowing 3, 1 over the 2 that's allowed. And the hardship has been stated by her as her understanding of why she needs that patio covered. So I don't need to go into that. Again, this house was built in 1941. Kurt's Addition was platted back in 1907. And that is the only variance that is needed, is to allow this 3rd structure in the position that she's requested. There are no setback issues or any other variances needed. There have not been any complaints or oppositions expressed by any of the neighbors regarding this structure being placed there. And it's basically, as I understand it, just for their use and to get out of the sun on these hot days, I guess. Anyway, So that is the request. Any questions?
Okay. Thank you, Norm.
You bet.
So this is a public hearing, and the only person that we had signed up to support was Barbara Wade herself. There is no one signed up to oppose. Is there anyone here that had intended to speak on this issue? Okay, seeing none. Barbara, is there anything additional that you would like to share? Okay. Unless there are questions from council, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council discussion and/or motion?
Mayor Kling, just that you know, as a council, I do support projects like this, because this makes a lot more sense than the last one you guys just voted on. To me. So I will make a motion to approve the variance request as stated in our packet with recommended conditions of approval.
We're all smiling. It's Sandy's.
I wanted the motion.
You can have the
Unless you
second.
did.
She got the second.
Madam Mayor, I wanted Councilman Skog to second it so he could change his
Yeah.
mind.
I know who my friends are. Not.
Is there any further, there's been a motion and a second to approve, and is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
With these variances so much this evening, we have 3 more at the next council meeting.
Oh,
Thanks.
great.
Thank you. We'll practice that. Thank you. Thank you. So with that, that concludes our public hearings, and now we can move back to unfinished, we're going to go back to staff reports. So we'll get back to the beginning of the agenda.
Madam Mayor, it's been 2 hours of sit-down time, and we take a break.
That would be fine.
5 minutes?
Okay, 5-minute break.
Thank you. Thank you.
I couldn't read.
Put them next.
What? What happened?
That is not jelly. That is you. staff has to stay. My apologies. We have two different items that I'm going to rearrange, and that is we're going to move to new business 6.2 on the agenda, which is the council direction in response to the Nampa Highway District Number 1 fiscal year proposed budget. Following that, we're going to move to 6.9, which is the Republic Services annual price adjustment. So let's get started, and let's see, back to, oh, Michael, this does mean you're rearranging your slides. Thank you. So again, we're on 6.2, and this is the council direction in response to Nampa Highway District Number 1 fiscal year 2018-19 proposed budget.
Mayor and council, this is an opportunity that we have some representatives from the Highway District here, so they may be willing to answer some questions. What we have is a presentation, kind of the status that we understand it today, and some actions if the council wishes to proceed. Just to give you a little background, the street revenue, this is a kind of a bar chart of the current street revenue for the city of Nampa. You have the property tax budget on the bottom, highway user funds, gas tax, those types of things. And then the road and bridge tax from the various highway districts, Nampa and Canyon Highway District. And you can see that in the 2016 is about 2.2 million, about 2.3 million in 17. It was budgeted about almost 2.5 million in 18. Then assuming that there would be a 3% increase, it's budgeted at 2.55 in 2019. And the revenue percentages of how we get our funding into streets, it's about, I can't see that from here. Should have my slide. About 49% in 2019 is your highway user fund, about 20% property tax, 29% from the highway district, and then a little bit from others. That just kind of gives you a perspective, and it's been pretty consistent along the line of every year. So the real deal is the highway districts, all highway districts have the opportunity for developing levies just like cities. They have the ability to create a levy, and there's two sections that the levies fall under in the state code. One is Idaho Code Section 4801A, in which case, and you have this in front of you, 0.2% of market value assessment purposes for the construction maintenance of highways and bridges, and provided that if the levy is made upon the property within the limits of any incorporated city, 50% of those funds are portions to the incorporated city. So this one, 40-801A, whatever the levy is, 50% of that comes, if it's collected from within the city, it's shared 50-50 with the city. Then there's also Idaho Code Section 40-801B, a special levy of not more than 0.084% of market value can be assessed for a number of purposes, which are virtually most of the things that highway districts or road entities can do. But no, the significant difference is that portion, no part of this levy shall be apportioned to any incorporated city, even if it comes from the taxes within that city. So that's a little bit of background. So to put this in maybe more graphical format, and using both Canyon Highway District and Nampa Highway District, so 801A, if the tax is levied on the city of Nampa and its citizens, 50% of that revenue goes to the city and 50% goes to the highway district. And if it's outside the city, 100% of that gets to go to the highway district. That's 40801A. If 40801B, for those that are taxed within the city, 0% goes to the city, and 100% goes to the highway district. And I don't know how to get that. So the question is, Nampa Highway District intends to adjust those levies, the tax levy, looking between the two alternatives, between A and B. So if you look at the way the levy was issued in 2018, about $6.5 million. This is from the Nampa Highway District budget. The property taxes based on 801A in their budget was $6.55 million. Those in 801B was about 730,000. The proposal for 2019, as published in the Press Tribune, the property tax in 801A is proposed to be $6,604,888, or about a 1% increase. And the amount that's being shifting to the levy, the 801B, which is solely kept by that stays within the highway district, is 71% increase, or almost doubled to 1.45 million. So this is a shift from essentially A to B. Next. So if there's any questions before I get any further, I don't know if the council wants to, there's lots of ways. The public hearing on this is August 9th. I'll be at the Highway District. It's at 10 a.m., I believe, at the Highway District. We're questioning does the council prefer to respond through the public hearing process? We just had one of these types of things last council meeting. Lots of ways you could do this. We could say, no, that's fine, no comment, accept it grudgingly, and we've given you a draft letter. You could request reconsideration or object, maybe more strength. So if we go, right, draft, accept grudgingly, could be something. We have a long history with the Highway District, and we work a lot of great projects. They are doing work in the impact area, which is solely in the Highway District, and they are, and so really the difference of this, the council understands and accepts the Highway District as an independent authority and to set its budget. And that's kind of the gist of the type of letter. Draft letter number 2, maybe more, the council could request a consideration. Again, we understand about 30% of Nampa street budget comes from the highway bridge levy. To adjust those funds would significantly impact the city of Nampa. The council could find the proposal for 2019 creates an unintended but significant hardship for the city. Therefore, request the Highway District reconsider its proposal to shift from 801A toward 801B. Maybe a fourth alternative could be something stronger. That's certainly up to the type of information you have. But we thought it was important. I have to give a lot of credit to the Highway District. They informed staff that this was going to happen with the assumption that, we're going to inform the council, and here's your opportunity to provide comment. And they're all here, and I suppose they'd be willing to say something if you asked them.
Council, do we have any questions? Bruce?
Madam Mayor, fellow council members, Michael, I certainly want a request for reconsideration and someone from the city to attend that meeting, whether it's the mayor, council member, or yourself. That would be my preference.
Any further comments or questions?
I would support Councilman Scott's proposal.
Okay. Rick?
Is the bottom line, Mayor, Council, Michael, the B, that difference that you have, I'm trying to make sense of that chart that you, sorry, as we get late at night, it's just, we can't make fiscal mistakes, but, so I'm going to ask for clarification. So under scenario B, what you have projected for fiscal year 2019, that's what would be going into the highway district, is that correct?
Well, Mayor, Councilman Hogan, maybe explain this quickly again. So this is not the city's proposal, it's the highway district's proposal, how they're proposing this budget.
Mm-hmm.
So if they were to, their proposal includes addressing a little foregone as well, according to the public hearing notice. So the increase from, for all of their revenue, on their property tax revenue, is the sum of both of these items. In the past, the ratio's been about the same if you look in 17 and 16 and 14. However, they're looking at changing that ratio to have less of an increase in that is shared, and a significantly more increase to that is not shared. I guess that's the easiest way to, and this would be a change in how they do it, though it is not uncommon that this happens in other jurisdictions.
Okay. Councilman Skog and Councilman Brunner, you noted preference for reconsideration. Can you provide brief rationale, just so I can understand?
Well, it's going to cause a hardship for our city. We're already tight for streets. I understand the highway district things are tight as well. And we really, as council members, are not up to speed with the highway district, what has gone on in the past, and we need to be. This has been brought to our attention, so yeah, I want it reconsidered.
Mayor, if I could. Michael, so what you're saying is that what this Nampa Highway District is doing right now is that they're increasing or not increasing based on the assessed value of our properties, right?
Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez, just like the city of Nampa, they set a budget. The budget determines the levy. In their budget, they can establish 2 locations for property tax. What is identified as 801A and what is identified as 801B. 801A, if they increase that property tax revenue budget, that is, if it's assessed to all citizens within the city of Nampa, the revenue is split 50% to the highway district and 50% to the city. So over time, much of the increase in the past, to their credit, has been primarily through this 801A section. And the city has gained about 3%, and that's what we incorporated into our budget over historical circumstances. They typically done 3%. This year, instead of putting that increase in 801A, they're adding the increase to 801B, which, even though it's taxed to the citizens of Nampa within the city limits, 100% of those dollars goes to the highway district.
Okay, thank you. I've got 1,000 other questions, but I think we need to attend the Nampa Highway District's meeting.
Someone's volunteering, it sounds like.
Oh.
Actually, this is an area where our citizens should be involved. And with all due respect to the Highway District, I appreciate the work that you guys do. And that said, when residents are taxed for roads, but they don't have any of that coming back into the city. They have to pay not for the work that's being done in their city. They're being taxed. Actually, it's a tax almost with no representation because they get nothing back for it. They're having to pay a tax and it goes outside of the city to fix roads outside of the city. And that's a very challenging thing. I struggle with that. And am I incorrect in that? Am I missing something?
I think you're on.
Mayor, well, from a representation, people do get to vote
They get to vote,
to the highway district.
yeah. So I guess they do have representation. But it's where the citizens would need to actually speak up, because that's a difficult thing when you pay for something but you don't get anything in return for it. And we're getting complaints like crazy about our streets and the fact that we don't have the funding for Nampa streets, yet they're paying a tax and the streets don't get fixed. So long-term, we probably need to address that scenario. Short-term, it's a budgetary issue. So that said, people that know me know that I'm going to speak very candidly. And so I appreciate the work you guys do. And this is one of those that you say, thank you for what you do, appreciate you, and we'll agree to probably disagree on this one. So I support Councilman Scogg's recommendation and the recommendation of the rest of the council. I guess actionably, I think I'm understanding that there's a suggestion that staff and a council member and/or the mayor join that particular meeting to go with your option number 2, which is to ask for reconsideration. Councilman Haverfield.
Mayor Kling, since I do have an ongoing relationship with the Nampa Highway District, I will be recusing myself from, if this is an action item, as a vote or further conversation back and forth in the dialogue. So I just wanted to make that on the record. It's because it sounds like it's a direction from council. So.
Mayor Kling, as someone that doesn't know much about the Nampa Highway District and their policies and their procedures, what about, could we have them, the commissioners that is, give us an education program of what they do and why and how come? Maybe that might answer some questions that we have ourselves in terms of policies and procedures and then also how it will affect our community. What do you think?
Well, I think that's great. A question that I have, in that this is not a public hearing, are we able to ask, to answer our highway district representatives to answer, maybe to speak to the issues that we've brought forth?
Being outside of the context of a public hearing?
Right, tonight.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we could ask, actually give you guys the opportunity. So I guess the question is, who would like to speak? Thank you. And I think you know the ropes, name, address, and the whole thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name is Eric Shannon, business address 4507 12th Avenue Road, Nampa Highway, excuse me, Nampa, Idaho. It's the Nampa Highway District address. I'm the engineer for the Nampa Highway District. I drew the short straw, so I'm speaking tonight. In attendance is our board chair, Dick Smith, our treasurer, Bryce Millar, and our new director, Devin Muco. But anyway, first of all, we understand that the city's put transportation as a top priority, and we want to applaud that. As Michael said, we've had a long, good, close working relationship with both Michael and also Tom Points, the city engineer. As Michael explained, there's the regular levy and then the special levy. Those are two tools that Idaho Code gives to the commissioners to set, and depending on how they do that, it determines how much money will come to the city of Nampa. All right. This year's proposed levy, they proposed that $2.4 million would come to the city. And Michael, if I understood you correctly, your projection based on what you had expected for an increase would have been $2.55 million. Okay, so we're talking $2.55 million versus $2.4 million. To put this into perspective, Canyon Highway District, which has about 80 to 90% of our road mileage and has about the same amount of revenue that we do, they returned $800,000 to their cities. So actually our commission is pretty generous on what they give to the cities. Now I know the question in all of your minds is what are we doing with this money? And basically this is all going toward capacity improvements inside the impact area. We have currently 8 programmed in our 5-year work program of signal and roundabout projects. They average about, what we're spending is about $1.6 million a year. And at the rate that we're going, we'll probably be adding about 1 to 2 of these types of projects per year for the foreseeable future. These are intersections that need to be improved, usually within a mile, sometimes just within a few hundred feet of the Nampa city limits. If they're not taken care of now, when the city annexes them, you're going to annex a bad situation. So the idea is that we build it now. When you get it, it will be working well. The other thing is that Middleton and Orchard signal is a case in point where 3/4 of that intersection of that site has already been annexed, or it hasn't been annexed, but has been developed. So when you have a whole bunch of houses that you're buying the front yards from, it's a lot more expensive and a lot more cumbersome to fix than say our Robinson and Amity or Robinson and Victory intersections where you're buying bare ground. So we think, looking back, not saying highway district versus city, but just society as a whole, we think society is better served in a lot of cases if we can tackle these intersections before they get developed. And that's better for us, and it's also better for the citizens of Nampa. And even though it's in the county, technically still, it's within a mile of the city. The reason we have congestion and high accidents there is because of the proximity to the city. We don't have these same problems at Rim and Melmont, south of the lake, because there's no population center around there. So that's what we're doing with it. We're putting it to good use. But the public hearing is August 9th at 10 a.m. We would welcome any participants, and they'll be taking testimony then. And then also, anything you would like to say tonight, I'm sure that they will remember when they make their decision then too. And I will stand for any other questions.
Any questions? That was very helpful. Thank you for the reminder. I appreciate the reminder on the roundabouts because we're anxiously awaiting those. And I know that you've got the one going on this year, next year Amity, and the next year after that you've got Victory. And so that is very important. And thank you. Thank you for your work. So this was an action item, and technically, I don't know if we need a vote. Bruce, would you like to turn your recommendation into a motion? Or Michael, do you have the direction you need? Do we need to have an action vote, or?
Mayor, Council, the question from staff is the council wish to issue a formal statement? Does it wish to attend the public hearing? What's your direction for staff?
That would have been my motion to go with your offer of draft letter number 2, generally, from the council. And to have a member of the city representative there, whether it's one of us, the mayor, you, one of your staff members, to speak.
Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? So let's do roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Okaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Abstain.
Brunner?
Yes.
And Skog?
Yes.
And then we need to, the date of the public hearing again was,
August 9th, 10 a.m.
and unfortunately, I am not able to attend. I'm in Twin Falls at a mayor's meeting that morning, so is there someone from council that could attend?
I can be there.
Okay, is there anyone else?
I may be there. I don't have my calendar with me.
Okay.
I might be kicking some dirt clods, but other than that, no.
Okay. Okay.
Not officially in this bill.
So Michael, I think we have the direction needed. Okay, so the next item that we're going to move to is 6.9 on the agenda, and excuse our shifting around today. This is the action item with Republic Services Annual Price Adjustment Request. And actually, do you want me to speak to it, Deborah, or do you want to? Okay. So basically, the request for this annual price increase, you've got the information in your packet. It is typically on the consent agenda. We do have an obligation to provide the price increase as per the stated mechanism. I'm forgetting exactly what it was, the cost of living increase. Deborah, you could speak to that. Remind me what it's called. It's in our packet, and I can't remember. I don't have it open.
Annual price adjustment by the CPI.
Yep.
It's a particular index of the CPI.
So typically, it's on the consent agenda, and it's just automatically done. The only reason I put it on as an action item was because personally, I felt remiss that when we did the price increase for recycling, that we did not mention that we actually had another price increase coming. Just for council's awareness, we did put out the, in the billings, we put out an insert that reflected the price increase of the recycling, and we did put a little bit of asterisk there in addition to the annual increase that takes place, which is the price adjustment. And so it is in, typically, again, as I said, in the consent agenda. I just asked for it to be here so that we could just say it was, I was remiss that we didn't bring that up at the time. So at this point, we would just stand for a motion to approve the price increase as required via our contract with Republic Services.
So moved.
Second?
Is there any further discussion or questions? Roll call?
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Okaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
And Rochelle, you waited a long time for that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah, for your waiting this evening. So let's get a handle on our agenda. I'm going to go back to the beginning of our agenda, and we're going to pick up with item number 3 on the agenda, which was staff communications, and then we're going to go straight through from here. So the first report is Nampa Boards, Committees, and Commissions by Bobby Sanchez.
Mayor and Council, this will be the first of what will be periodic updates about boards, commissions, and councils. Tonight, the specific focus is to talk about where we are in terms of our vacancies, appointments, reappointments, And then what the focus will be for the remainder of this fiscal year, which is to update the websites and then integrate periodic updates by representatives from the boards and commissions to this body, to the mayor and council. But before I go any farther, I'd be remiss, because I know many of you serve as liaisons or council representatives to our boards and commissions and add tremendous value to the shared governance process. So thank you for what you do in the service that you provide to our boards and commissions. In your packet, I provided to you a detailed matrix that depicts each of our boards and commissions, and by name highlights the individuals that serve on our boards, commissions, and committees, along with their terms of service and their dates of when their terms expire. I'm not going to walk through all that. I know you'll have opportunity to read through it. I just put it up there as an example. One of our near-term focus is to ensure that we recruit members throughout our community that could best represent the community in boards and commissions. So vacancies is what we look after, and we look forward out through the year to project vacancies so that we can recruit in a timely manner. That being said, I just want to highlight to you that our current vacancies are in the Planning and Zoning Commission, one vacant position there. In our Building, Site, and Design Standards, one vacancy there, and then 2 vacancies in the Venue Management Commission. Our analysis and assessment is that we will have these positions or candidates identified with nominations to you within about 30 to 45 days. Tonight, you'll have for your consideration reappointment to venue management, appointments to venue management, appointments to golf committee, and appointments to bike and ped. So that being said, after that's all said and done, we'll have about 6 vacancies in our boards and commissions, of which we have over 16 current active boards and commissions. In the last 6 months, some significant developments have occurred with our boards and commissions. It's hard to capture all that in a report, but I just want to share with you 3 highlights. We did stand up a Crow Management Committee, which is comprised of representatives from our Parks and Recreation, law enforcement, the Corvid Research Center in Boise, and then the Idaho Fish and Game. We meet monthly to talk about 4 things primarily. One is preventative measures. Second is education. The third is hazing and displacement of crows when they return. And then last but not least, displacement. Our intent is to provide a more detailed update about the late September, early October timeframe, which will give you the full details of our crow management plan as the crows return back to, as we expect the return of crows back here to Nampa during that timeframe. Also, in April, we took the defibrillators out, if you will, to bring life back to our sister city committee with the intent of having a full committee that can engage with our sister city, Tijuana Alto, in the state of Jalisco, Mexico. Our intent is to have that first meeting just after the Labor Day holiday in September. And then last but not least, with venue management. After the redesignation of that from the Ford Idaho Center Commission to the venue management in February, we've been working hard to get that up and running and fully manned. We're about 2 short, but we expect to be there, as I mentioned earlier, in the next 30 to 45 days. As we look forward, aside from filling current vacancies, it's projecting out amongst all those 16 boards and commissions who's set to rotate off of that and then be proactive as we identify potential applicants and begin a recruiting process. It seems like we're always in some season of recruitment. One of our bigger challenges is how we update the websites that are tagged or associated to each one of our board commissions so that our public can be informed and have situational awareness of their events and activities and opportunities to serve. Last but not least is to shape opportunities for liaisons or representatives from our boards or commission to, throughout the year, periodically provide reports directly to you, Mayor, and to this body about their events and activities. That's it for my comments this evening. Pending any questions?
Mayor Klink, if I could ask. Bobby, I noticed that particularly with the Board of Appraisers, the Board of Appraisers is predominantly city employees with two non-employees, David Peterson and Hubert Osborne. What is the possibility of staffing this with more citizens in our community rather than employees?
Well, it's definitely possible, Councilman Rodriguez. Thank you for your comment and observation. As we look at ways in how we enhance and improve the composition and mix, that's certainly one way to move the football down the field, so to speak, and that's to look at how we have more members of our community serving on that board. Thank you.
And actually, at our last council member, we committed that that will be changed, and we
Oh.
already have the plan in place.
Okay.
And so it's going to be, the number of staff will be reduced and the citizens increase.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah, so it's in the works.
Okay, thank you.
So, good question, thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
just a comment and question. There are some of the committees that I'm currently serving on, and my name is not on there, or it's non-assigned. And so I'm not sure, am I going to be reassigned? And I know that there was talk about a couple other committees, and so is this something that we contact the office and take care of, or how do we handle that?
If you would contact Bobby, because the one thing that we've got to come back and revisit is the council assignment to each one of these commissions, and so Bobby is working on that, and so he will be your contact. It's important that there is a council member assigned to each commission, and where that is not currently in place, please accept my apologies. It needs to be done, and it will be done.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilman Levi, for your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
I have to pause and give my apologies to our police. When I rearranged the agenda, I realized that you guys are waiting. And I give you my sincerest apologies. And so I'm sitting here thinking, do we shift the agenda again to get you gone? Excuse me. That did not come out right. I just feel for the fact that you're waiting. We have 2 more staff reports and 2 unfinished business. But you'd probably like to go home. You know what, so why don't we adjust our agenda again? And I apologize, I said that so wrong. You know what, we appreciate the work of our Nampa police officers, and I'm extremely pleased that we actually have a contract to approve. And so how about if we shift over to action number 6.4 under new business and not require you guys to have to wait any longer, as you may have families to go home to. And I apologize, I didn't see that earlier. So, Council, I apologize. I've been all over the place on our agenda tonight. Michael, you're up next. But I would like to move, and the action item is actually the approval and authorization for the mayor to sign the Nampa Police Protective Association contract. And is there, would anyone like to speak from the police department this evening? You're good? Okay. So I would stand for a motion.
Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we approve and authorize the mayor to sign the Nampa Police Protective Association NPPA contract.
Second.
Thank you.
He was going like this.
Madam Mayor, if I just a little
Yes.
bit of discussion. Number one, just thank you to Councilman Hogaboom for the time and energy, and for Officer Shepard and Gray. Just from not from a council person, but just from a citizen standpoint, you guys do an amazing job. I'm always concerned, and it might be a little bit of a bias from a citizen standpoint, that it's somewhat adversarial when it seems to go into negotiations. And I don't have an answer for that. I know genuine down deep, you and all of the officers and Chief Huff and so on care about the citizens of Nampa, but sometimes when we go in these discussions, it seems like what do we need to protect our officers and so on, it sometimes gets a little bit overshadows or trumps totally the safety of the citizens. And I'm not saying maybe that's just my perception or whatever the case is. And I don't want to at all, because you guys are wonderful. And you're fighting for your officers and so on, but I think we just need to reiterate that from a safety standpoint and some of this workout discussion and so on, where we had opportunity to have more officers out there, at least that was my understanding. I didn't quite understand why that was such a battle. And so I agreed to what this contract is, and I'm glad it's for 2 years. Appreciate, respect everything you guys do, but if there is a way of making it a little more or less adversarial, for lack of better terminology, I just hope in the future we can work on that. So, thank you.
Are there any other comments from council? I'd like to say thank you for your work. One commitment that we had this year, both through the budget process and through the negotiation process, was to, one, put more officers on the streets, right? That's important. For me, the safety of our officers is extremely important. I've been concerned about the times when you guys go out and there's one, not two. Because what's very, very important is that we protect the lives of the people that protect us. And so I feel good about our move forward. I appreciate the fact that we did resolve the workout hour so that we do have more hours available. Family life's important, that the overtime isn't burdensome. And so I'm pleased that we're moving forward, and I'm really pleased because this year the investment in our police is the most it's been in a long time. That was my personal commitment. I really appreciate the people that worked through the negotiation process, because it's not easy, it's hard. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you to our entire team, to the negotiating team, to our leadership within the police department. You guys do an amazing job. And we all, not just myself, we all greatly value what you do. And whatever we do as we move forward, I appreciate you protecting our safety, but we need to protect your safety and give you the tools to be safe when you're out there. So I trust that that's a direction that we're going, because we need to, because we appreciate your work. So.
Mayor. Thank you. I just too want to express my appreciation for what you guys do for us each and every day and how well you represent the city of Nampa. And I kind of hang out with our public safety guys, both our fire and our police department, and do a lot of ride-alongs with our police department. And last night I had the privilege of riding along with Corporal Harward. Is that correct? And one of the things that I notice every single time that I ride along with our officers is how well they relate to our community, and they want to resolve things. They want things to go well, and those interactions with them are absolutely stellar. So I just want to thank you for the job that you do in representing our community and representing Nampa.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, fellow council members, Rick, did Mike King get to review this last draft of the contract?
Yeah, to the best of my recollection, he reviewed it and responded.
Just want to make sure.
I guess we haven't voted, have we? Oh, my goodness. So we have a motion. Wait, we're still in discussion. Do you have?
No,
okay.
I don't need to talk. Those guys know where I go.
Okay, so.
And I've made all of my comments in the 6 meetings we've had and the hours spent over the table right here. We're good. I'm glad that the contract's made. I know. Yeah, I don't, thanks for what you do. Hopefully we can get through this motion. You can go home to your family, so, yes, all right.
Shall we get through this? So, okay, so is there any further discussion?
Mayor, excuse me, I guess I should thank Councilman Hogaboam because I nominated him to do this in his absence. And he did a fine job, which I knew he would, and I do sincerely thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
And I don't get to vote. Okay. Thank you for your patience. My goodness. Okay, shall we go back to our agenda and staff communications? Michael?
Just have a few things, we can hit the high points, or we certainly can get into all the detail. I don't have any problem with that. Starting off, staff report, chip seal program, kind of the last of the chip seal program reports. We're all done. Striping's done, painting's done. Put it to bed, and I said, hey, how'd we do? And the crews, I can't say enough positive comments on them. I think they did a tremendous job this year. We continue to pile more on them, they get them done faster. But looking at the back end, we had 11% improvement in efficiency. And so that's substantial considering we do this every year in and out, and here we are able to make about 11% improvements on a year just because send the right guys off to the right training and we paid a lot of attention. So I think a big kudos to the staff for getting a job well done this year. There was some concern in a couple of council meetings ago about water line breaks, so we asked Nate and the team to look into, how are we doing, what happens. So since 2015, we've had 32 different domestic water mainline breaks. About 10 of them were caused by contractors. The other 22 primarily due to aging pipes. We do have a graphic to give you a perspective where are they? And they're, if you would imagine, I suppose as you could imagine, I didn't get any more detail than this, but for the most part, the majority of the breaks are in the downtown, older part of town. That makes sense. As we found in our 2nd Street project, that water line has been replaced. The testing was today. I assume that was going well, and project's going. So that's kind of the other thing going. Also, the water folks been working. Along that, we do use our GIS program to track these breaks. We evaluate the pipe whenever someone cuts in a new valve or a new hydrant. We try to evaluate that to make sure we have the best decision as we're moving forward. Another report on our automated meter reading. Crews continue to install meters. For this year, we've completed, another picture. So of those automated meters, all of the largest cycle 6 is completed. Cycle 2 is completed, and much of cycle 1 is completed. And we expect to have that one completed next year, but we'll have, by the end of the year, this fiscal year, we should have 13,500 water accounts modified to automated meter reading out of the 31,000 total. So big steps by the crews. Also, just informational to council, we did sign an agreement with Skinner Fawcett for our bond council. This is to assist us with closing out our current loan, the $17 million that it's time to close out. So just like getting the right person to file all your closing papers, this is getting the right guys on board to kind of button that project up. Next thing on my report. And then status on the parallel path. So as you know, on July 24th, council meeting staff received direction to further develop an alternative. We're now calling that Alternative 7. That incorporates information from Mr. Herman's report. The parallel path evaluation will be conducted in tandem with a preliminary design phase. So we've kicked that off. We've met, we're working toward that path. We met with Mr. Herman and Mr. Olmsted also on the 24th, discussed the alternative, how we would consider it, and that we would use the business case evaluation like we have on every other alternative. The next steps in this process is for the review of those proposals by the third-party attorney, and that's working through legal counsel, and they're working on that contracting right now. And then once we have the outcome of the legal counsel, we'll incorporate that into the business case evaluation process. We'll also have look at costing and make sure that we're properly addressing risks and benefits associated with that, and then be able to provide a net present value alternative, just like we have every other alternative. So that's in the process. I'll probably take a few months by the time I get the attorney on board. It's going to take him 30, 60, 90 days to get through that review, and then probably another month, I would guess, or so to do the business case evaluation. Some of this may be done in parallel, but that's yet to be determined. We're still working our way through the process. Primarily, number one interest to get the legal review. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Vicki?
Mayor and council, thank you for this evening, I think, so far. The privilege of living in Idaho is, well, first of all, let me refer to the report that I gave you in the packet. There was a lovely chart that took up half of the page, and I'm not going to go over the report. Instead, I would identify that the privilege of living in Idaho is that the state legislature, state code requires a balanced budget. That is one reason why the city of Nampa, for more than 1 year, at least 2, maybe more years, has won an award as the best managed city in the country. Congratulations to you as well as to city employees, because everyone cares about the city budget just like you do and treats the budget as though it were their own money. However, some of you as well as others have asked, how do we save money? And the response to that is the city saves money the same way a family saves money. You spend less than you bring in. And one of the ways that the city can do that, frankly, is through the use or through saving fund reserves. This year, we're going to be spending fund reserves for appropriate uses, one-time uses. But one of the other ways is through what we're going to be doing today, this year as well, which is not always using 3%. If we use the 3% and budget money expenses that we don't actually expend, it falls to the reserve, and that's a good thing because then it accrues over a very long period of time to be available for use. If it falls to the foregone amount and it's not used, then it also takes a very long period of time to accrue for a specific use. And in just last year's legislature, they said, if you use foregone, you have to use it for a specific purpose, and that purpose has to be identified through the budget process, in the budget resolution and as part of the budget hearing. In my mind, although it's not truly a savings account because you don't actually have it available for your use, but when you need it, you can have the flexibility with the opportunity to identify it as for a specific purpose. In the year 2025, as I identified in the memo, the GO bond will be paid off in the prior year, and without increasing the levy rate, a future council, that's only 6 years when a council will be dealing with the budget, that could involve some of you, could have the opportunity with the flexibility to not increase the levy rate and use $2.6 million either for the street fund, if there were a specific need for that, which there always is, you know, for the Idaho Center to finish a park, any opportunity that might come to the forefront in 2025 and not even increase the levy rate. Wouldn't have an impact because the GO bond would have been paid off in the prior year. And that's why it is my recommendation as the finance director that you not disclaim any foregone, either in this year or in successive years. Do you have any questions?
Madam Mayor. Vicki, there's already 4.2 million built up in foregone, is that correct?
4.3.
4.3, okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
And therefore, you have an opportunity in any year to identify any portion of that, even as you have a decreasing levy rate now, because frankly, the opportunity is before you for the street fund every year. Even as those commissioners have heard you today, you may find that you need that opportunity every year, but that's for you to decide in any year what you need to determine.
Mayor, thank you. I spent this last week with the Canyon County assessor and had quite a bit of this explained to me, and I hope I understood this correctly, and I kind of want to put it out there, especially for those who might be streaming online. the foregone taxes, or the 4.3 million, are not sitting in a savings account somewhere. This is money that has to be gathered from the taxpayers. And I know that I was wondering, well, is there a savings somewhere, or what are we doing with this? And so I think that's something that we really need to make our citizens aware of, that it means, even though there's this 4.3 million out there, it's in their pocket that we would have to take from them.
It would be applied as part of the budget, just like any other amount of the 3%. So in any year that you might say the street fund of, needs to be, or not just the street fund, but the street budget. Let's suppose that the street budget lost $700,000 next year, or even this year, as might be proposed. That represents 2%. A full 2% of the 3% that we would be receiving or eligible to receive. If you were to take 5% next year in order to supplement what the streets would be losing, I mean, that is what you would have to take, is 5% instead of 3% in order to supplement what isn't available through the highway district, as we heard this year. I mean, tonight, as we heard tonight. You would have to take the taxes and increase the amount of the property tax budget, recognizing that they're taking it as well, but it's not available to the street fund, right?
Mayor Kling, if I could. So, since, do you have an opinion or factual basis with what the Nampa Highway District budget is and how it's going to affect the city of Nampa?
Mayor and Councilman Rodriguez, it will clearly be a tax that our citizens will be paying. Do I have an opinion about their budget? No.
We just answered the question, yeah. Yes, thank you.
I think Michael has an idea of that number, though, don't you? Have an idea of what that actual number is that's going to impact our budget?
We've been working for, Claire's been trying to chase this number down. There's actually a couple of things that's changing. Both the amount, so to put that in perspective, Eric said that they anticipate giving 2.4 million to cities, is what their estimate is for fiscal year 19. In fiscal year 18, their amount to cities, which includes Nampa, Melba, and a little bit of Caldwell, was 2.66 million. So there's 200,000 roughly less that's going to cities from the highway district. That's what they anticipate. They're based on their estimations. We've seen a decline in the amount of revenue from, proportionately, from in the city versus out of the city, about 1% difference every year since 15, 16, 17, as we started looking into it. So it's actually, proportionately, we're declining. Even though we get 3% more, proportionally, the amount is declining. And it's just like the city tax levy, how much it affects every individual, significantly complicated. On a big picture, it's pretty easy, about 200,000 less to the combination of Nampa, Melba, and a little bit of Caldwell.
Wow.
Thank you, Michael.
Mayor?
Vicki, yep.
Council. I have a question for Vicki. I've attended some of the transportation meetings, and there's been a concern from some folks about the GO bond expiring, and this talk about capacity, right, the following year, and appropriating those funds to streets. The question that I have and that I've been asked is, the GO bond was voted on by the voters, and whether or not the council is exercising authority to appropriate those funds without the public voting, even because it wouldn't be debt, right? You'd be appropriating. So if I hear you right, not disclaiming the foregone would allow us to appropriate in a budget year, in a fiscal year, monies, right? Captured, has to be captured, as Councilwoman Levi pointed out. Would that be the foregone expanding the budget, not just for that fiscal year, but for the following year? Meaning that would be the base going into the following fiscal year, or is it like a one, new growth, annexation, that sort of money that comes in that could be just allocated for one time sort of I mean, it could be allocated for either way, but it's whether the budget is expanded to include that amount, not just for that, the 4.2 million, but that's what the budget, the capacity for the following years.
Once you take, Mayor and
Yep.
Council, once you take the foregone, it becomes a part of your base, unless you define it differently. So if you define it as a part of the street fund for that purpose, you take the foregone. It's not like the GO bond, which was a specific amount, I've forgotten now, 30 million or something. It was a specific amount of money for a specific period of time. But when you're taking foregone, that amount was already an allowable amount that was not taken. So it's not the same purpose. But you can expand your budget by the foregone amount.
Okay.
Vicki, thank you. You've done a good job. I appreciate this information. I think it's very important that we fully understand it before we make a decision. So I just want to say thank you for your efforts. Thank you for your work. Okay, that is it for staff communications. Now we're going to move to unfinished business, and this is item 4.1. This is an action item, and it is to authorize the mayor and the public works director to sign a task order with Brown and Caldwell for the Nampa wastewater program Phase 2 and Phase 3 upgrades preliminary design for the Nampa wastewater treatment plant. This is continued from our council meeting on, it appears to be July 6th. Michael?
Madam Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve the request as written.
I'll second with a clear understanding we have the alternative path that we are pursuing and looking at the same time. And that we can back out of this contract as represented at any time if we wanted to stop the work.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. This would give us an opportunity for discussion.
Madam Mayor, some discussion. And legal, I know you can't give us exact dates, but on this parallel path, let me get my microphone so they can hear me. On this parallel path, Michael made some time estimates, and nothing soon enough, of course, but as far as the third party, as far as legal representation, do you have, in talking to Mr. Hilty and so on, do you have any type of just kind of a gauge you can tell us as far as a window of time as far as on this parallel path?
Councilman Bruner, Madam Mayor, I can tell you that Mark Hilty has already initiated discussions with multiple attorneys who do this kind of work, and it's my belief that the periods that Michael shared, that they should be able to get on board, review the process, and render an opinion within those timeframes.
Okay. And then if I may have a follow-up, and this is maybe Michael or Matt or whatever, and I saw the timelines as far as the different designs and payments to a certain extent, but a lot of this is front-end loaded. I guess in 6 months, do we have an estimate of that 4.9 million, how much would be spent in the next 6 months? That's a rough, I know that's an off-the-wall question, so I understand if you... So when Councilman Skog says pulling back or whatever, I guess I'm wondering what actually would be left to pull back, so.
Mayor, Councilman Bruner, so if the way we've laid it out, and I think the easiest way, I put together a little figure here.
I saw the months, and of course, it's mainly labor intense. I understand that over 4 million was labor.
So the first major step that we're going to go through is what's called the base of design report, and that's phase 320. The expected cost for that, or the budgeted cost, is $462,000. That's the timeline that goes essentially through January of 2019. This is from the last council meeting. So that's the first step. After that point in time is when the major design activities would start. So the first one is make a lot of big decisions, and the second one is go take those decisions and translate them into layouts that can then be translated to design firms. So within the first 6 months, we're looking at $462,000 plus some of the project management costs, so $500,000, $600,000 range of the 4.9 million total.
Okay, and when what I was looking at, it pretty much is pre-designed for phase 2 and phase 3. And I know we no matter what, we have to have expansion. but there's no cost of this 4.9 million that has anything to do with any of the expansion phase, or is that integrated into these pre-design phase?
Mayor, Councilman, it's all of phase 2 and phase 3, so it's everything that's been presented in the facility plan. So it has repair and replacement, growth, and then also.
So the expansion is included,
The
is
expansion is
integrated into it?
integrated in, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any further questions or discussion?
Let me just have, if Vicky, maybe it's a Vicky question, just as far as a budget amendment question. As far as if, and I think I kind of know how council is going to decide on this, but if it was denied, is there any reason why down the line, sooner than later, a budget amendment could be made as far as for this allotment of money?
Mayor and council, are you talking about 2018 or 2019?
How about 2019?
2019, we can certainly,
Do it a budget amendment if
Do a budget
it was not passed tonight.
in 2019, there will certainly be a budget amendment.
Okay.
Councilman, I'm not sure if I understand your question. Could you help me understand what you're
No, I'm just,
saying?
I'm just the unknown. I just hate spending money if we find out 4 or 6 months from now that some of this money is not going to need to be spent. That's why I was asking the question as far as on the pre-design, if it was integrated as far as expansion, et cetera. And I don't know what that amount is. I know there's a sense of urgency. I mean, everyone kind of feels that way. I'm just wondering, I'm hesitant. I personally am hesitant as far as okaying this at this point in time without getting as much information as possible from the parallel path. And that's why I was asking Vicky if we can do a budget amendment, then I personally, I think at this point in time would be in favor of not okaying this and doing a budget amendment for this as needed as soon as possible. So that's just my perspective. Does that make any sense, Vicky?
Mayor and council, if I may, normally we do our first budget amendment about March.
Okay.
So if we're worried about doing an amendment as soon as possible, I wouldn't look for one early in the year, only because we try to put it off until after the audit.
Okay.
So
So we're looking about March of 2019 where a budget amendment could be proposed. Okay.
Madam Mayor.
I'm torn. Enough of that, but I'm really torn on this, but I'm having trouble at this point in time as far as voting in favor of moving ahead with this. So.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Brunner, I'm going to direct this question to Michael. Regardless of which path we take, we still need to take these actions and get this building plan going, correct? We have to expand.
Right,
We're all in
Mayor,
agreement.
Councilman Scott, you're 100% correct. If something changes, all of the improvements on the plant that are going to be designed are not if, but when. The plan currently assumes the path that we've provided to be able to complete these improvements by 2026 and by 2031. The preliminary, you can't look at capacity without making sure that you don't have all the other pieces fit in the same footprint. Our plant is footprint constrained. We only have so much space to build all the stuff forever, or we're buying more land or more space. And since we're hemmed in on one side by the railroad tracks and the other side by Indian Creek, and then everything has to fit. And so if we can't not do preliminary design for all of the other alternatives and all the things that have to fit there, it has to all be considered as one possible unit because you have so much space limited and it's all interconnected. Even if we don't do temperature, for example, or we don't do phosphorus, or we don't do pick your poison, it all has to be planned out on this footprint because you don't want to spend $5 million we have one. Right now, we have a tank on that plant that probably cost about $2.5 million. It was prior to 2005. It's elevated. It doesn't fit in the flow path. It's a digester, or it's a clarifier. It's a middle clarifier, and it's the one one that we have. I don't know why we have it, I don't know how it got there, but that's a perfect example of let's figure out how to do one thing at a time. And you end up spending millions of dollars on something that's gonna get tore out because it doesn't fit. All of this stuff has to interconnect literally, this is a forever plan. We have one footprint, all of the stuff has to be figured out how to fit it into. And even if it's not done today, based on the regulations, it will be done at some point in the future. And that's why planning is important, and that's why the preliminary design is important. Because we have to figure out where it all fits, and the deadlines don't change.
Michael, as I'm listening to you talk, what I realize is this is our master plan. This is our long-term master plan. No matter what we're doing, we have to have a long-term master plan of how it's going to fit on the property. Looking at, it just occurred to me in a different way. It's a different way of approaching it and viewing it, but it really is the investment in a master plan that's going to take us into the future. Because if we don't do that master planning, as you just suggested, you end up with the one-offs or the whatevers, and it doesn't fit. And so this is an investment in a master plan for the future.
Correct, Mayor, and that's.
Is that a correct
Yeah,
statement?
that's a very good way to put it. The facility plan for all of the equipment that's identified goes through 2040. We've identified the amount that's funded to address what we know as the permit limits today to be constructed by 2026 and by 2031. But it also has to take into account all the other stuff that has to happen between now and 2040. So that's part of why we're looking at this now. And it's more detailed, right? We have a plan. This is a more defined plan. And at the end, we'll have design documents that are even more defined. And then we're going to build something eventually.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
just for the sake of it going on the record, first off, I do appreciate your putting things in perspective, and I appreciate your further clarification, Michael. I also appreciate Councilman Bruner spending that money up front. That do we need to spend it, and are we being judicious with the money that we have been allotted? But I also appreciate Councilman Scogg's thoughtful motion in how he put some definite parameters that we could back out if we needed to, and we could make a change of things. So it's really a tough place to be making a decision, but it seems that people have been very thoughtful about this. So I totally appreciate what you guys are saying, and I'm just as confused and conflicted about where I want to go with this as well.
And just for a point of clarity, the contract has a 30-day out clause, if I remember correctly.
Well, there's general, Mayor, I don't.
If there was a change, this is in response to Councilman Scogg's recommendation. If I remember correctly, I think that's.
Mayor, I can't specifically remember, but most of the contracts we have are T&M not to exceed. We work with folks all the time, and if the project stops at some point, we pay from what's due, and that's what they would stop.
So Mayor, clarification then. With that given in the contract in comparison to what Councilman Scogg put in his motion, can we still back out? Or your motion? Oh, I'm so sorry.
I believe,
I'll
I'm
take
sorry.
all the compliments you want to throw.
I'm so sorry, I apologize.
Randy did.
Oh, Randy made the move.
Randy did, and then Bruce said.
Over here, yeah.
My apologies.
So actually, the contract does, what the point I was making was that the contract actually is in alignment with what Councilman Scogg's recommendation was. It's already defined in the contract to accomplish that we have that out if we need it. That's my understanding. And I see Matt shaking his head yes. So it's been a while since we've talked about it, but we've had this discussion previously. So is there any further discussion?
Just one, hopefully it's a quick question. Relating to some of the other action items, especially as it pertains to receiving monies related to the development, which the public voted on as far as the bonding amount. How much of this project would be funded by that? If you can just remind me and council, perhaps they know.
Mayor, Councilman, we have have, I believe, in the fiscal year 19 budget, an estimated $6 million of, it's right around 6, I can't, $5 to $6 million, I don't have my budget here. in
Okay.
front of me, But I think it's about $6 million of new borrowed money.
Okay.
Are we ready for roll call? Call for the vote.
Rodriguez,
No.
Brunner,
No.
Hogaboom,
Yes.
Levi,
No.
Skog,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Mayor.
I'm sorry, was that 3-3?
Mm-hmm.
So my vote is yes, to support moving forward with the parallel path. That said, I totally support and agree with the fiscal responsibility, watching out for our citizens as we move forward, but I feel like we've gone this far. Our citizens, especially with the funding that we have currently reserved, we need to show that we're moving forward. I don't want to put it at risk. And that's one reason.
Tough call, I understand.
It is a tough call, but I think that it's important that we have the 1.68% financing and we move forward towards that, and appreciate the incredible hard work that's gotten us to this point. So,
Mayor, I just want to make sure with what the statement you just made, that I voted correctly. You had made the comment about that we move forward with the parallel path, and I support that, but that wasn't what the motion was, correct?
That was an understanding.
the motion was to move forward with the parallel path with the added guidance and restriction that we have the ability to step off of that path if the information that we glean, tell me if I'm saying it correctly, if the information that we glean shows that we need to step back, that we have that ability to stop the forward movement.
Okay, thank you.
Bruce, did I state that correctly?
Well,
Or,
I apologize to council for my second. I started into the discussion with my second, with why I was having the second.
okay, but are we all on the same page, though? And so the motion was that we move forward with a parallel path. We support engaging, signing the task order with Brown and Caldwell to move forward with the parallel path of them moving while we're doing the research. And so that was what we voted to do. So we did do that.
Okay, thank you.
And my clarification was, I think it's important that we continue to fulfill what our citizens voted on.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, just echo Councilwoman Levi's comments. I think that clarification, I understand that there's a lot of concern in our community. So to be clear, there are some guardrails around this yes vote. The reason I voted yes is that by not doing so, I don't want to jeopardize the project, miss the deadlines, jeopardize the funding. 80+% of the public voted to do this, even though it was begrudgingly.
87.
But I want to communicate to the public and to those who are streaming that we are pursuing a parallel path. And I know that that's what you communicated, and so we're working on that. And I know that we can only disclose so much of that because some of that is going on in private, well, I shouldn't say private communications, but executive session communications. But to communicate to the public that is something that, yeah, pursuing.
Mayor Kling, I would like to make also known that, again, we talked about a T&M approach, a time and materials approach contract. You can stop the contract at any point in time based upon, I mean, if the work scope is such that it's determined that you don't have to go the full distance, you can stop at any point. That's the assurance. That's the guardrail you're talking about. The other thing that we haven't really said here is this parallel path might be fruitless. It might not get us anywhere. We still have to keep going forward. So just because we're going on a parallel path with the hopes that maybe there's a golden goose over there that we can work with, it might not be there. So we have to keep moving forward. And as a council, we're being prudent, and I think in the approach that we're taking, looking at this other potential alternative as viable, but it might not be. So with the guardrails that are in place, I feel very confident that with the vote of the people being so strong, this was the right decision to make.
Well said. Thank you, Randy.
Also,
Councilman Haverfield? Excuse me, well said.
Mayor, may I ask Michael, just also because I know there's people viewing, there's a lot of interest on this issue. We had a special meeting and we approved comments that would be sent to DEQ, right? So what is the timeline again on when we'll hear back from DEQ on the comments that we made? You know, I'm sorry putting you on the spot.
Mayor, Councilman Hogaboom, they're usually 30 to 60 days. We haven't heard specifically how long. We don't know how many comments they received.
Okay.
They were submitted, Mayor Kling signed them, and we submitted them over to DEQ within the deadline.
Yeah. Thanks for permitting just that clarifying question for the record, because I know there's a lot of public interest, and so we did have a special meeting. We wordsmithed comments that are going to DEQ. We're asking for them to reevaluate based on information that we received, and we eagerly await word back from them, hopefully favorable news. But, yeah, thanks.
And Madam Mayor, if I may, just while Michael is here, and this is kind of off the subject, but I think it's publicly out there, if not, but on the 20th, you will not be here. And 13 years of service to the city, even though I've been a thorn in your side for the last year plus at times, just appreciate all your work, your knowledge, and just wish you the very best. Okay?
Will you be here? Will you be at council that night? I was going to ask you
His last
publicly.
day is the 17th, is
Well,
what
it
I
is the
saw.
7th. I guess that was on there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've
So
read
I
that.
just want to make sure the public is aware and appreciation for what you have meant to this city. So,
Thanks, Michael. You can come.
Thank you.
Just for fun.
Councilman Levi, did you have something that you wanted to?
Well, I was just going to say with that further discussion that went on in the clarification, if I should change my vote, but I mean, it passed, but for the record, I'm just kind of wondering what the legalities of that are.
Aaron?
I think your statement on the record reflects what you would do if there was a second chance. I would have to research what kind of effect that would have, but under the circumstances, it's not necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're ready for action item 4.2 on the agenda. This is the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to RS6 on the south side of Lone Star Road between 2201 and 2117 Lone Star Road for Jubb Engineers representing Trilogy Development. The public hearing was on 6/4, and the request is to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance determining that certain lands commonly known as the unaddressed property lying between 2201 and 2217 Lone Star Road, Nampa, Idaho, comprising approximately 5.75 acres more or less, lay contiguous to the city limits of the city of Nampa, county of Canyon, state of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the city of Nampa, Idaho, as part of the RS6 zone, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below be part of the city of Nampa, county of Canyon, Idaho, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the city of Nampa, Idaho, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith, providing an effective date, and directing the clerk of the city of Nampa to file a certified copy of the ordinance and the map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, state of Idaho, and Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
Mayor Kling, I'd make a motion to pass this ordinance as written under suspension of rules.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, item number 5 on the agenda are the pending ordinances that will be coming forth in the near future, and then back to new business items. We have already addressed 6.1, 6.2, and now we are ready for item number 6.3, which is the resolution calling for a public hearing for fiscal year 19 city budget.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just point of order. We may want to make some adjustments on the budget. Where is that? We approve the budget.
You can do that in the public hearing.
Oh, not until then.
I think that was my understanding, but maybe Vicki can speak or Aaron can speak to that. Vicki? If there were changes to the budget, is that done during the public hearing process and that vote at the public hearing?
It can certainly be done at that time. If you want to change something in the resolution, I can do that now because it has not been printed yet.
Aaron, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. And as Vicky would, she would share if the question continued, changes can be made after the resolution is printed and number is included. You can adjust down from that number at the hearing, just not up.
Right.
That's all it is, so.
Yes.
So we could change the resolution that night.
No.
No?
Sorry.
The language on the resolution before it's voted upon?
Madam Mayor, the resolution will be printed tonight based on your motion. The number in that resolution sets a cap on the budget. At the hearing, you could approve a number that's smaller than that. You cannot approve a number that's larger than that. Tonight, you can change that number and put the number you want in the resolution. You're then limited to that number at the hearing, though you can go down.
Yes, thank you.
So, Madam Mayor, fellow council members, I had a suggestion, it's just a matter of if we should bring it up tonight or tomorrow. I don't know if it's a lot of discussion. But since we're bankrolling the police department with an additional almost $4 or $5 million, and we were able to get the buyback or on the workout hour, that puts an additional equivalent of 6 police officers on the street just with that buyback. And then we'd also plan for an additional 6 officers. So just thinking out loud with you here, do we still put all those new 6 officers on the street, or do we save just a little bit of money perhaps by delaying? And I checked with the chief on this and he didn't have any objection. As originally planned, 4 new officers, but 2 other new officers, making 6, don't start until April 1. It saves a pretty good number on the budget for fiscal year 19. So I'm just thinking out loud with you on that.
Let me just verbally out loud, I'm seeing a nod yes from the chief. I kind of look at and so I would be in support of that, Councilman Scott.
Again, my question would be, Mayor Kling, is that something that needs to be a part of this resolution, though? Or could that still be discussed at the public hearing? Because we're talking about decreasing the amount of the budget.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, as I understand the question that's been raised, Councilman Skog, I don't know if your intent would be to propose a number that is less than the previous number based on the savings that could result from that change. Certainly you could do that tonight and go into the budget hearing with a smaller number. You could go in with the full number, have this discussion, and then approve a smaller number at the hearing. What you can't do is go in with the lower number and adjust back upward.
Right.
Understood.
So that said, it has been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution as stated. If we approve that
I
as,
think we've had a motion.
I'm sorry, I thought we had
We had a motion and a second.
We did.
we did?
Field and Hogaboom.
Yeah, it was
What?
moved
Sorry.
in, seconded.
I didn't second.
Someone did because I heard it.
What?
It was very quick, but.
Who made the motion?
Oh, we made the motion on the resolution, not on, I'm sorry, I'm confused. I'm confusing what Councilman Skog's bringing up as an initial motion, but we're actually still in discussion on, yes.
Right.
Oh,
On the initial
The
motion.
motion and the second
Right.
to it.
Mayor Kling, if I could ask, Vicky, and maybe Joe,
Yeah.
what would be the benefit of doing this? What's the money that we're looking at?
So where would it come out?
I think, I think on the actual Form 10, it was 85,000 per full officer. So you'd take that half, right, times 2, which goes back to 85. So
Mayor and council and Joe, but the initial capital required for each one would be the full price. So I think maybe it was 60,000. Because you have to still buy all of the equipment. You have to buy, and that was, I think, 15,000, wasn't it 15,000 per officer that you have to invest initially? Yeah, something like that. So you don't get the actual full year savings for half the year.
I see.
I mean, half the year savings for the full officer. You can't buy half a person. So
There's
you
not
save
really-
half the salary,
There's
but
not really a
not.
benefit to do that, right?
I mean, so I think you save 60,000
Oh,
or something
60,000.
like that.
Madam Mayor, Vicky, that benefits are included in that 170,000, correct?
In the-
Yes.
In the total? Oh,
In the
it's
total.
In the total.
Mhm.
In the total, right, yes.
170,000.
Yes, definitely.
inclusive.
But
Okay.
that also
Pay and
includes
benefits
some
and
capital that
capital.
has to be bought whenever you hire, so.
That said, and as Councilman Skog, I said, I don't, I guess what I don't support is if we take it to foregone. I know it's council's responsibility to do budget, and so, it truly is your responsibility. I think right now, when we consider the fact that we don't have a way to fund reserves, and have agreed upon budget, and if we don't hire, those funds would move into our reserves. And when we're pulling out of reserves, personally, I like the idea. I agree, it looks good if we can go down an extra 60,000 and it's less than 2.75, it's 2 point whatever. At the same time, it doesn't allow us to put any in reserves. And by leaving the budget as is, if we don't end up hiring, if we hire, great. If we don't end up hiring, it goes into reserves. Or if we choose to do that, we could put the money, we're going to be short in streets. We know we're going to be short in streets. So if we were able to say, hey, we're going to save 70,000 or 60,000 or whatever it is, we could also be giving consideration to putting that into our streets budget, which our citizens have said, please fix streets.
Mayor.
So.
Mayor, sorry. I'm going back to what you were alluding to is what our citizens have told us at the beginning of the year, the things that are most important to them. And then what legal has also said to us this evening about we can go down, but we can't go up. I definitely don't want to take a budget increase, period. However, I would rather have that cushion, and then if we want to come down, we can come down. But if we vote to take that out tonight, we can't go up. And if something happens between now and the time we vote, that we are definitely in need of those extra officers, we've kind of put ourselves in a tight position.
That's a good point. Okay, so there has been a motion, it's been seconded, we've had discussion.
A little more discussion, Madam Mayor, excuse me. At what point, question for legal, do we need to discuss the foregone ordinance or resolution?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Skog, was this brought before you as, I believe it was brought before on a recent meeting as to whether you were interested in bringing that resolution, having it published alongside the budget resolution? I believe that answer was yes.
Yes.
It was not a vote, it was an
Wasn't-
email request.
Okay. And so some event, and the statute doesn't say how to bring it before the council. If there's interest in that, then it will be noticed up that it will be an option. It'll be noticed up for the budget hearing. A hearing will occur in conjunction with the budget hearing. It can happen simultaneously. But that will be presented to you as an option, and it will be published in the paper that you're considering disclaiming. The number, I believe, based on the previous numbers, was around 90,000.
93, and I think it was 93,000.
Representing 0.25% of the available levy that you initially are planning on not taking. That can only be disclaimed in the year in which it is not taken. So the previous indication led to the plan to publish that and bring it back to you at the budget hearing. You can't actually take any formal action until that publication and notice has occurred.
Okay, so Madam Mayor, it was a discussion we had early on after the election, and council was in general agreement we wanted to do that. So I just want to make sure it's part of our public notice for discussion at the public hearing.
So, this doesn't work in my favor at all, but I got to ask the question. If we publish the notice based on the anticipated foregone, and we reduce the budget, it increases the foregone, so what happens based on that public notification?
Madam Mayor, my understanding of the statute, the way it's written, and of course this is a new statute that's not been tested in the courts, you would be limited, your disclaimer would be limited to the number in the publication, which of course would be made prior to those decisions.
Well, then that does work in your favor, doesn't it?
Well, actually,
Potentially.
well, it does, but I wanted to bring full notice to you, because if we don't, right, if we stay right where we are and it's noticed, then that means that we are bound on the foregone exactly. So for me, it's great, but for Bruce, for where you're going, it isn't. So I just wanted to bring that up so that we were all fully aware. Right, yeah.
Just for clarification and discussion, so there was a motion, I seconded to proceed. We can reduce then, from what I understand, the motion doesn't include those nuances that's reflected in the conversation we had, so.
But, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
it's clear we're going to have the foregone notice, for discussion in, okay, that's all.
Very good. I didn't know if that needs to be, if I need to amend my second to include that, or if that should be,
Well,
or if Randy
you
does.
can't amend a second without the person who making the
Yeah, so
motion
that's
amending their motion.
So what's your intent?
Well, I just want to be clear that if we proceeded to roll call vote right now, it would include nothing of these items that we discussed unless,
Oh, correct.
unless the motion was amended.
My understanding of my motion
Yeah.
is that we would proceed with what we approved and what is written in front of us to a public hearing.
Mhm.
At the public hearing, we can always reduce the amount. Bruce's comments about the foregone being a separate item will come up that same evening. We'll talk about that, but this has to be approved first. So if we amend it, then that amends the amount or increases the amount of the foregone that we're talking about.
Mayor and council, doesn't the notice about disclaiming have to be a part of the notice for the public hearing? Isn't that what you said?
Madam Mayor, Vicky, the notice will actually be a separate notice.
Right,
But
but
it'll be
it's still-
published simultaneously for the same hearing. And with respect to the question of whether that needed to be part of the motion tonight, I believe council's already formally given the instruction to bring that forward. So the resolution's been drafted,
I see.
the notice has been drafted and will be published alongside the budget hearing notice. That will come back to you regardless of how this motion went tonight, so.
Mayor and council, if I could just ask for clarification then, are we talking about the possibility of disclaiming the 93,000 and that's all? Is that true?
Based on, because I'm sorry, would you like to answer it? So if I understand it correctly, based on the resolution, the disclaiming notification would be based on the current budget, which is the 93,000.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I
And I'm sorry, I just need a follow-up, excuse me. But I opened up the budget module and determined that Joe is more correct than I. Note this moment. And and the mayor was too. The salaries.
942, he just marked it.
Okay. And that the salaries, salary and benefits are 79,234. Doesn't include, the items that I was referring to are in excess of that amount. So that's the amount for 6 months of savings for 2 officers. It's closer to 80,000. Just an FYI, I'm done talking now.
No, thank you. Mayor Kling, I don't know why you guys are making this more confusing than it really is. It's beyond me. You know, we told the community we were going to be with law enforcement, and we should continue to be with them. We voted on it, and we should continue down the path. That's what we're here for. End of story. Sorry, Bruce, but I don't agree.
Well, we're just talking about this motion right now.
Okay, so it has been moved and seconded that we move forward with a resolution calling for a public hearing for the FY19 city budget. Roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Skog,
Yes.
Hogaboom,
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So, that was item 6.3. 6.4 has already been done. We're at item number 6.5. 6.5, 6.6, and 6.7 are actually action items for the appointment of various people. So I'll just give you an overview of all 3 of these. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee came, Rita had a recommendation of Mickey. I'm not going to try to announce her last name.
Kawakami.
Thank
It's
you.
Japanese.
Thank you.
I'm not Japanese for the record, but I speak a little Japanese, so.
And the Golf Commission came forward with a recommendation of Dave Clausen, and Kenny Roten has offered to be a part of the Venue Management Committee, and Mitch Minetti was currently on the Venue Management Committee, but his term expired, and so this is just a reappointment for Mitch Minetti to Venue Management. So I would stand for a motion.
Mayor, may I move on all, okay. I'd move that we approve and appoint the said appointments to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee, the Golf Commission, and the Venue Management Commission.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Thank you. And 6.8 has already been discussed. And moving on to 6.9, that has been done. 6.10, this actually is just the amendment approval as previously mentioned for the 2014 CDBG action plan.
So move.
Second.
Robin's still here?
Is there any discussion or question? Nope. Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Robin, thank you. What's
The
that?
next one's me too.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Is that good?
Oh, I'm sorry. We did 14 versus 15. Excuse me.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment for 2015 CBDG as listed here.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, action item 6.12. This is the first reading of an ordinance for the name change of East Farron Lane. I don't know, Michael, do you have anything to say on this, or can we just,
Oh, I remember that.
As simple as this, there's, wanted to break a few lots in the county, I'd like to call it East Farron Lane.
So moved.
Second.
I have to read.
okay, so, thank you for reading.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, naming a new private lane, East Farron Lane.
And the request is to pass under suspension of rules.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
6.13 is action item to authorize the mayor to sign a contract for Canyon Street pedestrian improvements project.
Second.
Discussion? Brunner was first. Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
6.14 is an action item to authorize the mayor to sign the culvert agreement for Grimes Drain with the Bureau of Reclamation.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Item 6.15 is to authorize the mayor to sign a contract for the fiscal year 18 storm drain repairs for Zone D, Phase 2 project.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Item 6.16 is to authorize the mayor to sign a contract for the Well 16 pump to waste project.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
6.17 this is to authorize the mayor to sign the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality Form 2A application for the state revolving fund loan for Phase 2 and Phase 3 upgrades at the Nampa wastewater treatment plant.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, questions? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
And 618 is the action item. This is a resolution for establishing and appointing the wastewater design committee to assist the city in the design of improvements for Phase 2 and Phase 3 upgrades at the Nampa wastewater treatment plant.
So moved.
Second.
Michael?
Well, we have all of these spaces filled up for the design review committee, with the exception of 2 vacant council members. So maybe potentially there might be a recommendation or an appointment to assist us in completing this important.
Someone who supports the project?
Somebody goes on vacation. When you going, Rick?
Wait. Madam Mayor, Michael, when are the meetings? I mean, do we have kind of a projected timeline, Nate, or whoever is in charge?
Mayor, council.
I heard 12 meetings. Is that what
12 over
I
the
read?
next 15
months?
months.
And then what do you have a time of day that you're thinking about? Like 7 in the morning?
Well, 7.
Question.
So we're talking citizens, 2 citizen members, 3 industrial members. So daytime, work hours probably.
Okay.
But it's up to the committee to decide, and once the committee convenes, hopefully this month, they'll decide.
I'm offering to serve, but I would, that's the challenge. I would,
I nominate Councilman Bruno for one of the positions.
but I would, Matt, you're okay with mornings, right? Okay.
I'll second that motion. You got one. You're good.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean it.
I know it's okay. Okay, so actually, we have a motion to approve this resolution, and that motion is on the table. The secondary, I don't know that we need a motion.
that
That's kind of a,
We'll form the committee first.
That can be
and then-
discussion later.
yeah. So right now, we have a motion on the table to approve the resolution for establishing, and it's been seconded. Shall we do roll call vote?
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Now, that said, we may need a second action item because it's a commission that is appointed, correct? And so I'm not sure if we need to vote on the council member. So maybe we can come back and do that right now. So Councilman Bruner, you have volunteered. Is there anyone else that would volunteer and we could vote? I'm looking at you, Randy.
I serve on 4 commissions now. Does anybody else want to have a chance at this?
Victor, Levi?
Sandy would be good.
You know, you guys understand this stuff better than I do.
It's not a requirement, so why don't we go with Councilman Bruner, and then there is a space open. It is not a requirement that it's filled with 2 council members. I appreciate the fact that we have a council member that, at this point, says he's willing to serve. So,
It was under condition, so I'm hoping I set a time, what time? can-
Mayor Kling,
yes,
I would also volunteer if it's early morning, that we can try to get it out of the way and still have an opportunity for us to do our normal business. I'd be willing to serve as well.
Councilman Haverfield, thank you so much. So I would stand for a motion to approve the nomination of Councilman Haverfield and Councilman Bruner.
So moved.
Second.
Who was so moved?
It was so moved by
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez and seconded by Hogabaugh. Roll call.
Bruner?
So we vote for ourselves, do we?
Yes.
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Oh, yeah, I guess.
Skog?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
And I apologize, I have the hardest time getting last names, saying councilman last names. So I apologize that I'm using first names, I will get it.
Madam Mayor, you can call me Darrell anytime. I don't need all this formality, so.
Always have to think on the last name.
Or you can call me whatever you want.
Can you call me honey?
You can call me late for supper, too.
I'll make a motion to adjourn into executive session. Or am I allowed to read the code? Or-
You, feel free to.
Well, it's not listed there, huh?
Well, it's under 7.1, it's a motion to adjourn
Yeah.
pursuant
Okay.
to Idaho Code
Yes.
74-2061C to acquire an interest in real property which is not owned by a public agency, and then also to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061D to consider records that are exempt from disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 Idaho Code.
Yes, so moved.
Seconded? Randy, roll call?
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Stogg?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.